Yes, tonight I don't give a You've been posting with somebody new. From Mortgage One Studios, live with Russ Clark. Good morning. It's 6 o'clock or very close thereof. Phone lines will be open, just so you know. I still take. I have the phone calls on. I didn't do it for a while, until I got used to the studio and used to the new equipment. But and it is still using my cell phone, so it's 928-941-0304 for those. And I'll do better today. I'll try to repeat that occasionally. I still have people telling me that they haven't heard it or whatever. Some things going on. Well, let's start with some Yuma stuff. Some things going on in Yuma and San Luis. It's Arizona Tech Week. I didn't know that. It's Arizona Tech Week. Might be a Hallmark card. It's cities across the state are holding events to participate in the very first Arizona Tech Week. So it's the first one. It's powered by the Arizona Commerce Authority. It's and we're engaged. Starts today, April 7th, Tuesday. COFA Border Radio is looking for volunteer hosts. Isn't that interesting? I'm thinking about it. I might go see what's going on there, some volunteers. And you get to take a tour of the KAWC COFA studios in Arizona Western College. It's worth the trip. They have a beautiful studio. I mean, it is nice. They have a nice deal out there. It's on the AWC campus, 2020 South Avenue, 8E, from 9:30 a.m. today to 11 o'clock. It's within the Matador Activity Center near the 3C building. There's no parking right next to it that I can see. I mean, it's, I think, accessible by civilians or whatever, but you can go out there. It's hosted by Elevate Southwest, which I don't know much about Elevate Southwest, but intention is to fuel and ignite is about presenting the leading edge of STEM. What's STEM? Science, technology, engineering, and math. STEM, which I think is great. This Fuel and Ignite with Southwest is going to be at 274 South Main Street today from 11:30 to 2 o'clock. Innovation startups in our state and beyond. So it's a presentation from Elevate Southwest, and it might be worthwhile. I don't know if I'm free today. I'd like to see that. I'd like to find out more about Elevate Southwest. I don't know much about them. The Yuma Hackathon. A hack's not a good thing, right? I mean, usually when you say hack, is somebody doing something wrong or illegal. It's a beginner-friendly, community-driven event, and it's going to be focused on IT, cybersecurity, information security. And you're going to take place in something called Capture the Flag, cybersecurity challenges, problem-solving exercises. No, that's not for me. I don't think I'm that tech-savvy. I think I'd have my flag captured. Real-world tech scenarios designed to provide a glimpse into cybersecurity and IT careers. Very necessary because it's big. IT, cybersecurity, so it's real necessary. That's going to take place today, 274 South Main Street at 4 p.m. for the hackathon. For you hackers out there, want to learn more about it. And then on Wednesday, again, AWC or KAWC is going to host another Picture podcast. Same place at the studios there from 9:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. Same time, same place, same building. Matador Activity Center. And then build your custom GPT for entrepreneurs. Royer AI, in partnership with Elevate Southwest, is presenting a 2-hour workshop. Now, I'm going to put this one on my calendar. I don't know if I'm able to make it, but I want to do this one. And it's for local business owners to build a custom GPT and learn how to leverage artificial intelligence in their business practices. I can tell you I have no idea how to leverage it. I do some research on my phone occasionally, for some AI, but to actually leverage it. And I heard a little blurb on this on the internet the other day when there was a discussion about AI, and a business executive was saying asking the question to use AI, and the guest was saying, or the commentator was saying, well, once a day maybe I might check it for something, which like I do, I'll check, do some research or something. He says from the moment he wakes up to goes to bed, he's using AI. He's interacting with AI, whether it's scheduling for everything, note taking, whatever it is. He's using AI every day. And he says it's a tool. It's not making decisions for me. It's a tool. And I'm like, wow, I've got a lot to learn. I don't. I could sit down with Edward, our fact checker. He's very engaged with the AI. I don't know how much it controls it. I say controls, facilitates his business or his daily activities, but my assumption is a lot. Probably like this guy that was talking the other day, this businessman that was talking, that it just makes him more productive. Everything's at his fingertips. He's always ready. It sounds like Edward. Maybe that's how he does it. I'm gonna have to check with him. He might. This is going to take place at Elevate Southwest. So Elevate Southwest has their own building. It's 2450 South Madison Avenue from 10 o'clock till 12, and that's on Wednesday morning. If I can work that into my schedule, I'm going to be there for that. And then on Wednesday, Yuma Ag Tech Opportunity Ecosystems. And the article says, it's Yuma's becoming a leading launch pad for ag tech innovation. It has been for years, I thought, not becoming. I think it's there from all I've seen and heard since I've been here and talking to our agriculture people and the advances that they make here. Yuma County's ag broadband infrastructure, the Arizona hub for agriculture innovation and industrial partnerships. This event will take place online. It's a webinar. It's going to take place online, 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. on Wednesday. Also, probably well worth your time right there to find out what's going on in Yuma agriculture. And then GESD, Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math, STEM again, Career Pathways. And that's going to be at the Gadsden's Elementary School, number 32. I don't know why they put number 32. Gadsden's not big enough for more than one, are there? Let alone 32. But that's what it says. They're going to be giving away 300 Chromebook laptops. Now, listen up, parents of seventh graders. The seventh graders are going to get the opportunity to receive a free laptop. And they've been donated by the Department of Defense STEM Ambassador Liz Colton and Arizona Students Recycling Use Technology, AZ Struts. To receive a laptop, a parent or guardian must be present. It's going to take place in the San Luis Middle School Gym, 1135 North Main Street, from 5 to 7. Obviously down in San Luis. Wow, that's definitely worth a trip. And getting seventh graders involved in STEM that's where it should be. Seventh graders for sure. Thursday, April 9th, it's going to happen again, the same giveaway. But it's going to be at Crane Middle School. 300 Chrome laptops, all to seventh graders. The event's going to feature Dr. Christina Diaz, president of Onvita Health. She's a medical doctor. And the CMS principal, Ryan Tyree. They're going to both be guest speakers. Students will be able to engage in a variety of hands-on STEM activities, including interactive experiences with Arizona Science Center on Wheels, a live Zoom session with a NASA engineer, and solar viewing through a telescope hosted by Foothills Astronomy. Again, the laptops are donated by the DoD, STEM Ambassador Liz Colton, and Arizona Struts. To receive a laptop, parent, guardian got to be present, so make sure you go there. And that's Crane School, Middle School. It's going to be the location. 4450 West 32nd Street from 5 to 7, so you don't want to miss that. If you've got a seventh grader, wow, getting them kicked off with a free laptop, presentations about STEM from president over at Onvita, as well as the principal, Ryan Tyree, as guest speakers. A Zoom session with a NASA engineer. Yeah. I don't have a seventh grade grandchild. I don't think. I'll have to find out. I don't know. I got one that might be there. I'll have to figure that out. 6th, 7th, I'm not sure. That would be worth the trip right there, and that's gonna be on Thursday, April 9th. On Saturday, April 11th, Valor Performance Testing Experience, Valor Health Rehab. I've heard a little bit about these guys. I don't know much about them. My daughter has gone there for some chiropractic stuff. They're offering a close hand look at cutting edge uh, VALD, VALD performance. I don't know what that is. It's a testing system used by elite athletes to measure strength, balance, power, and asymmetrics with real time data. I should do that. Let them know what my balance, power, and asymmetrics and strength are. That'd be good. I don't know if I can. Because a lot of times they use electronic signals to go through them to check muscle mass density and that kind of stuff, and percentage of muscle mass versus fat mass and water mass and all that stuff. I got a pacemaker. They tell me to stay away from such equipment, not for fear of hurting the equipment. And I've got to talk to them. I'm going to call the pacemaker people. As you know, well, for those that listen, I've been going to the gym for at least 2 years on a regular basis, with the exception of the last 2 months. Last 2 months after some medical stuff, I've had to take a little break. I was there yesterday. I felt great. Um, I, my stamina wasn't as good. I think 2 months sitting on the couch maybe will do that. I'm not completely on the couch, but I haven't done the work I normally do. But I'd like to they have a scale there where that measures all that, including the asymmetric power. It may be the same machine they're using at Valor Performance Testing, you know. Um, but the machine, the people that make the machine says you can't use it with pacemakers because, you know, it's sending electrical pulses through and it may interfere. And I've talked to the manufacturer's representative, not the manufacturer, but the representative of the manufacturer in the hospital about that, and it won't damage the pacemaker, which intrigues me. So tell me more. If it won't damage, then why? It could put it into a standby mode, which would keep the heartbeat at 80 beats per minute instead of 60. And then as soon as you turn it off, it goes away, and you're only on it for like 1 minute. I'm like, well, so I'm going to call, I think it's Medtronics. I'm going to call Medtronics, ask them. Of course, generally they're going to be super cautious. Like, well, even though it won't, and I've read on the internet where a lot of people do it, even with, you know, they have pacemakers and they still do that. One thing I'd be afraid of, though, is there are pacemakers that have a charging system in it to restart your heart. Yep, the defibrillator, right sewn into your chest with the batteries and everything. You know those things when they say they put the paddles on you, and the docs say clear, and then they hit it, and you jump. You know, you see it in the movies. They actually implant one in you, and it comes with some pacemakers with a defibrillator. Which I've known a few guys who've had them. I know one that it went off one time. We were riding motorcycles, and we went to a restaurant, and we were standing in a restaurant for a while, and you know, waiting for a seat, and it went off, and he was backed up against the wall, and wasn't feel right. But it senses something wrong with the heart, and it went off. And of course, the ambulance had to come and get him. He did not ride his motorcycle home. And I wondered, if you have one of those in your chest, why are you riding a motorcycle anyway? What if that thing goes off while you're riding a motor? I think he sold it after that. I think it was gone. But anyway, I would be worried about that pacemaker if you had a defibrillator and you started playing around with it, that you might set that thing off. I don't have that. I just keeps pace. That's it. I didn't get the defibrillator. I don't know. Maybe they thought, you know, here's Russ. Let's do it. Do not resuscitate. I don't think so, but maybe. But the Valor Performance Testing, it may be the same machine. I don't know. They're getting pretty common. I see them in doctors' offices. I see them all around, and basically you stand on them with bare feet. You wipe your foot off first and stand on a metal plate. And then you grab a couple handles with your arms straight at your side after you haven't eaten all morning and limited, no coffee, all that kind of stuff. And then it measures your weight and it measures body mass, left arm, right arm, legs, all that. And it tells you that you're fat and then have too much. You got a lot to lose. It'll even tell you, hey, we recommend you lose maybe, 100 pounds or something. But it'll tell you. Right? It's very rude, very direct. Just be forewarned before you step on it. That thing's going to tell you the truth. It's not going to lie to you like your friends do. It's going to tell you. And it's and I've been doing it for about a year and a half and seen the changes in my body, the changes in the composition of fat content, muscle content, and all that kind of stuff. I hate to think I could never do it again. I don't know. Maybe I'm addicted to it. Maybe I like doing it. I like seeing the progress. I like documenting where I'm at. And I'd be curious where I am after 2 months of not being in the gym. I'm probably not in great. I'm probably taking some steps back. We'll see. Also in Yuma, the conversation of data centers come up, and I know I've had some calls on it, and some people talk to me about data centers, about why we don't want them. There's a lot of concern out there for some reason. I've also read some articles that it was some astronomical amount of data centers are necessary to do what the United States wants to get done. What when I say United States, I mean private business as well as government and all that stuff for these data centers, because it has something to do with AI and storage of AI and all that kind of stuff. But apparently, and I can't remember the number now, and it's not an article I have in front of me, but it was like 800 data centers or something all over the country. And part of that article was, and we don't even have the power to fire them up there. The power doesn't exist right now to be able to have all the data centers that people think that we're going to need by 2030, 2050. I don't know, but they looked out in the future and said we're going to need this many data centers, which means they're going to be building them. And if they're building them, why not build one in Yuma? Yuma, because data centers represent a few things to me, other than the advancement, the technology and all that kind of stuff. Of course, there's a lot of NIMBYs, and that means not in my backyard. Yeah, well, go ahead and build one. Just, build it over in California or something, or build it somewhere else. We don't want it, which I just don't understand that. I mean, well, I do. Some of the arguments the community activists and the community people put in, well, it uses water. True. It uses power. Yeah. Both true. Well, they don't want to share. Look, I know we have water problems. Everybody does. And I know we haven't found any solutions other than swapping the current water that's there. Just, give me more of yours or take less of mine, whatever. It's not the answer. The answer is to innovate and get more water. If more water is necessary, get more water. But getting back to the data centers, there was a mention by the mayor at some point about the possibility of a data center. It was some kind of discussion. So, the city came up. I mean, I guess it came up at a city meeting. When the city manager and the mayor and the council all get together. I think twice a month they get together and have a meeting there. For the public, they come in and sit down and everything, just business. And it came up about people don't want it. Oh, and just so you know, there's not one in the planning right now. There's not one. The mayor, Doug Nichols, has clarified that in social media posts. He says no applications or permits requests submitted to the city for approval. There's none out there. And but the community members came up with posters in hand. 5 of them. It says 5 individuals. Just we were given an opportunity to speak, so there could have been more. They did just say, hey, let's limit this to 5. We get the message. They are opposed to it. And like I said, I think it's just water. They're going to create jobs. I mean, these are technical jobs. These aren't sewing Nike shoes. These are technical. Um, Public comments. They followed a presentation by GYEDC. That's the Greater Yuma Economic Development Corp. And it's a good organization. They're always looking for new businesses and entertaining new businesses to relocate to Yuma. I mean, their job is the opposite of what the protesters were and the activists is. They want to stop businesses from coming. GYDC wants to bring them here. And the reason they want to bring them here is because of jobs, growth, more for the community. Well, GYDC outlined things that are coming to Yuma right now, including a manufacturing plant. It just doesn't say which one, and quite often they don't. Not until ground breaks and it becomes public. But and I was a member of GYDC for a few years, and a lot of things we discussed, and it was a privacy thing. You just don't say it. It would hurt the discussions. It would hurt the chance of a business coming. You could sour a deal real fast. But anyway, that manufacturing going to bring more than 700 jobs and over 65 million to the area, and that's what GYDC works for. And that's what keeps restaurants going. That's what keeps retail outlets going. That's what keeps schools funded. That's what we need. We need people that actually have jobs, not just a bedroom community for California, which we've got a lot of that. Ask people that sell houses. There's a lot of people from California that moved here that are still working in California with an internet connection. Although they spend money locally, that's okay. I don't mind that. The presentation also include development of the Horizon in data center. Oh no, it's on the horizon as a data center. It's on the horizon. There's nothing yet. Greg Levon, president and CEO of GYDC, said data centers are coming, folks, and they are coming in waves. That's a reality. I'm not just speaking for the city of Yuma. I'm speaking for the entire country. Every community I go before, I tell them the same thing. These projects have interest in our community for a number of reasons. It's not because of water or an attempt to capitalize on our resources. It's the fact that we have a very strong electrical infrastructure. There are major capital investments coming down the pipeline that will bolster our electrical grid at no expense to the community or ratepayers. And new projects are not using water at the levels they once did. And see, when I read this morning, I didn't even know we had electrical grid. I just haven't been as connected to some of these things that I have in the past. And I used to talk to APS constantly, on the radio. They would come in 4 or 5 times a year and talk to me about innovations and things we're doing with the grid and that kind of stuff, solar, how solar integrates and all that, which is really interesting. And I need to start doing that again, getting those in here. But when he talks about water at the levels as it once did, I guess it does use water. And I guess it's a cooling component or something. It's not like they're have recipes going on where they need to add water. It's a cooling thing. My understanding is that the reason they don't use it now is they recycle it now. They're being built to recycle water, particularly in something like this. So it's just like your radiator uses water in your car, but it just doesn't run through your car and goes out onto the ground. It's kind of running in a loop. The radiator kind of runs in a loop. I'm assuming it's something similar. I have not spoken with them, but I have heard that they recycle the water and they use it, and that's the best analogy I can come up with. It's a radiator. Maybe something different, but they're not flushing it down the sewer systems or out into the ocean. It is being recycled and captured. Now, he also confirmed that Yuma is on the radar, and this comes from GYDC, not the mayor, which makes sense. Data centers due in part to propose natural gas pipeline. Another thing, I didn't know we had a pipeline project going on. And it could potentially serve data centers and other industries. And other industries are looking at that, saying, look, Yuma's going to have this grid going on, a grid upgrade, and a natural gas pipeline boost. Well, that's good. Could potentially serve data centers and other industries. But now, several council members expressed concern following the presentation. Well, of course, because they had 5 people with protest signs in front of them, so they got to show concern and ask for more thorough, balanced reporting, outline both the benefit and the potential impacts of the community, and that's fair. They need to. Art Morales is one of them. He says, "I'd like to know the impact to our community." I would too. I think that impact would be very positive. At least that would be my initial response. I think it's going to be positive to get that done. Katie LaForce, and she's a Yuma resident, says this is not sustainable for our future, and I beg you to reconsider building any data centers in our community when we are already experiencing a drought. And obviously, Katie's concerned about water. Fair comment, and it needs to be addressed, and we need to think about it. We need to go through it. And we need to do something with water after 20 some, I think almost 20 years of saying we're in a drought. We need to do something and doing nothing. And I'm talking doing something on a large scale, like desalination. Something. We're talking 5 states engaged, 5 states. And what they do is they argue over, wow, the drought's getting worse. We should cut your water, not mine. That's what's been going on for 20 years. It's just ridiculous. You know, and the reason Yuma exists and some of these other places exist with farming, agriculture, and all that is because a number of years ago, people decided to build reservoirs and to build dams and to channel the water and protect it so that it's here for us, and rather than just let it flood and then drought and then flood and drought, flood, drought, trying to balance it. And it was balanced for years up until this latest drought. It's been overused, and we don't have as much rainfall in the last 20 years. And we have more usage. So that's a bad mix. It's pretty simple stuff. But we're still not addressing it like it's real. We just look at it and say, well, yeah, that's too bad, and go about our day. At least that's my interpretation of it. Because I see in California where I think 40% of the rainwater still runs off into the ocean because they like it that way. For the greenies in California, they think that's the way God meant it, and we need to let it run off into the ocean. That's good for the snail darter or something. And we have farms going under, and we had trees, almond trees that rotted and died because irrigation's cut off so it could run into the ocean. And in California, it takes a chunk of the Colorado River. It's right on the Colorado River, just like Arizona. Yeah, see, we share a border with California. The river runs right between us. They made that the border. It was an easy landmark. Let's make that the landmark. Arizona starts here and California starts on that side. Pretty cool. Well, on the west side of California, they got lots of water. Yeah, Pacific Ocean's right there. It's kind of like unlimited, essentially, of water. They've got it. They'd have to desalinate it, but nope. They truck it. Oh, no, truck it. They canal it from Yuma to Los Angeles. Yeah. Rather than from Los Angeles to Los Angeles and then a desalination plant because of the expenses. I mean, free water's cheaper than water you pay for. Although they do have to pay to pipe it and stuff. That's not free. But I think it's probably quite a bit less than paying for desalination. And California's weird. They got other problems. I mean, with desalination plants, the way desalination plants works is you take salty water and you filter it, and you're able to remove the minerals and salt, and it becomes out pure water, which I think everyone understands. That's the way it works. And then to flush that system of salt and all the minerals that you took out, you flush it right back where it came from, into the ocean. California has a problem with that. Their EPA said, well, we can't put contaminants in the ocean. No, we took it out of the ocean like a minute ago. Well, you can't put it back in. Yeah, it's a contaminant. It's salt, basically. It's right out of the ocean. So, yeah, they struggle with that kind of stuff because they're idiots, pretty much. Kokoba tribal member Roxanne Barley also spoke against the impact of the data centers could have on tribal lands. So yeah, review it, look at it, and I make everyone comfortable, or make it go away. But I think it's going to make everyone comfortable. It's not. It's not like it's caustic material or something. It's not like they're making lead acid batteries and dumping all that stuff into the streams. Something a little different. Let's take a phone call. Good morning, Sandy.
Good morning. How are you?
We're doing really well.
Good. I don't know much about the data centers, but every time I hear protesters, I just get real suspicious, wondering like, who's pushing this? Who's egging on the protesters?
Right.
Because with the data centers, what I'm wondering, and because I don't have a knowledge base, I'm just wondering, could they use solar power to help with their power that they need?
Of
Or
course.
would it be
Everybody can.
okay? So,
but they're going to be power hungry enough to where it's going to take more than that, unless you build a whole farm of it.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I really would like to see our grid across the country improved. I've heard President Trump speak about, and maybe it was these data centers or some of these companies he was talking about where they were going to have to provide their own power. So
Correct.
It might have been the data centers.
Well, it is.
And then
It's all centered around artificial intelligence, and they use data centers.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I would like to see both. I'd like to see the companies figure out how to generate their own power.
Right.
And a lot of times you have some really smart people that come up with innovative ideas. And I'd like to see our grid improved. I'd like to see both, which I guess to have our grid improved, would that have to be a government operated?
No. That's a private enterprise, and that comes from our power companies. And that's already happening. Apparently that's already on the books.
Good.
That's part of the reason they're looking at us. They're saying, great, Yuma's getting this grid upgrade at no cost to us. We're not paying for it directly. We all pay rates, but it's not going to increase rates or anything. It's just something they're doing. And plus we're getting a gas pipeline, natural gas, which we already have natural gas.
Right. I heard you talking about that. I didn't know either.
Yeah.
And then regarding the water, if you have these different companies and innovative people, maybe they would build the desalination plant.
They won't.
Maybe
they won't until we're in a crisis. Once we're in a crisis, and I think we're in a crisis now, because it's already stopped construction in Phoenix in some areas. Some areas they said, okay, we can't prove you got a 100-year supply of water, so we're not going to let you build. I mean, that's already happening.
Oh, I remember you talking about that. That's true.
Yeah. So,
but how long does it take? Say if you built a plant, how long would it take to even get a lot of water from something like that? It seems like it'd be a slow process. Am I wrong? Or
I think it's quicker than you think. The technology on the plant is not. It's not like building a foundry to make chips, which they take decades, to get everything right. This is, it's a water filtration system. It's not as, I mean, it's high tech, it's high pressure and there's a lot of things going on, but it's still, it's pretty, I imagine it'd be pretty rapid. You could put those up fairly quickly. And Israel has done it in such a way.
With the data center companies, even, I think you said no to me already, but
what's that?
Would they want to try to do that? Maybe a whole group of them get together and try to do that in certain areas. And then maybe the protesters wouldn't be able to protest.
Well, I guess anything's possible, Sandy, but these guys can locate anywhere they want. They can go anywhere. Why would they come at some place where they have to build a desalination plant? I mean, we should be building it for our community, just like we build, the dams and we built the canals and we built all that stuff. We didn't ask one company to do it. I mean, it was done as a community project, a governmental project. The Hoover Dam was.
But it's not being done, correct?
We're not doing anything currently. Nothing big. And that just kind of amazes me. I mean, how did these people 100 years ago have all this inspiration when they didn't have near the technology we have, or the ability we have, or the tools that we have, and they built the dams that which is just amazing, to dam up the Colorado River and everything. And how can we not be doing those things or building desalination plants? And Israel has got them down to a science where they have excess water now. They sell it to other countries.
Oh, we should be doing it. That's crazy.
It is crazy.
That's just crazy. That means that, unfortunately, we don't have good leadership in the communities.
Well,
because that's what
yeah.
I think it takes, and unless there's also government regulations,
well, there are
disincentivizing it or something. I can't figure out why.
Well, because nobody wants to pay for it. When free water's free, but yeah, now you're talking $300 an acre foot, which is pretty cheap. I mean, desalination used to cost a ton more than it does now. Israel has been one that has really, and of course all the Arab countries, Iran and Saudi Arabia and Qatar and all those guys all use desalination. They couldn't have the populations they have if they didn't use desalination. So,
well, I'm pretty sure that you could get people from Israel to come and give advice on building it.
Of course,
I'm sure. They would work, and maybe even from the other countries too. So
right.
It's going to take somebody with maybe not as smart as Elon Musk, but I think I shared a video that somebody else shared with me from Elon Musk, and it's just amazing the different things that he's doing, which could be used. I don't know if they're going to use it up on the moon, but they're talking about using these different things like, building underground.
Yes.
And machines to make tunnels and robots to do the work, because you don't have to worry about people to do the work on the surface.
Correct.
And you got to have somebody like that, and somebody who can get, you need a Donald Trump person to do it. And he can't do everything.
And I'm glad you mentioned that.
He's bringing companies in, and but that's what you need is somebody that will do that. And I'm sure the Imperial Valley could use it too. They're killing the sea. To me, that's purposeful. I know conspiratorial probably, but they're killing the sea. And I think it's to get to, I forgot what that mineral or whatever it is that would help with. I can't even remember the name of it.
What, lithium or something? You mean one of the
rare lithium.
Okay.
Maybe they're trying to get to lithium. I can't figure out otherwise why they're trying to kill the sea.
Kill what sea?
So, the Salton Sea.
Oh, Salton Sea. Oh, well, it's drying up anyway. They got to do something with it because it's going to be toxic if it dries up. If a dust storm hits it after it dries up, we're going to be filled with toxicity. That means things have been draining.
We already have that in the valley. I think that's why they started doing that. Do you notice on the news, and I could be wrong on this too, but the news where they do like breathing, how safe it is for breathing in the different communities,
air quality,
local news. Yeah. And I thought, air quality, right. And I thought, man, does that have to do with the Salton Sea? I don't know. But, and I think some of it does have to do with people and using chimneys and other things to keep warm, maybe putting a lot of smoke out in the air. But for some reason, they started doing that. I can't remember, because I don't watch the news that often. But that didn't used to be. There wasn't a company that was doing that. And I thought maybe it was related to the Salton Sea, and I could be wrong.
I don't think it's reached a critical point yet. And in fact, they continue to send some water into it so it doesn't dry out, because it's dangerous to dry out. They don't want to expose all that and have it become exposed to the air and then have the air blow it around and us ingest it. But they have been talking about mining.
My husband grew up hunting there. It was a great place to go hunting. I went with them many times, and then I remember he and my nephew were out, and there was a bad rainstorm, and the water was coming over the road. And now it's just, we drive out there and look to see how it's changed, and it's just getting worse and worse and worse. I wish they had brought more into the sea, more water into the sea. and maybe set up a desalinization plant there.
I think you need to do more than that right now because, like the new river coming out of Mexico, which is raw sewage, a lot, and chemicals, has been dumping into the Salton Sea forever. It just comes in.
Ronald Reagan gave Mexico a ton of money to take care of that. And guess what? The money wasn't used to take care of that.
I don't doubt it.
Because of the corruption of Mexico, and how many years ago was that?
I think we should build a dam and just let it back up.
They didn't do anything about it.
And we could build a dam there and just let it back up into Mexico.
Well, that would be a good idea. I don't know why they don't do it. I don't know why.
Well, we don't do that to them because the Colorado goes down clean. We could dump everything in it before it goes there, but we don't. Which is good. We don't need
and
to.
it needs to just go through some process where they clean it up, but they're just not willing to spend the money to do it.
Basically,
talking about Mexico.
Yeah, just septic type systems and stuff. They could be hooked up like a city hooks up. We don't dump raw sewage. It all goes through processing to where it's not a problem. It becomes fertilizer, dirt. It's just.
Well, I heard another video where Mexico is like the 6th largest economic country in the world.
Mexico?
They could do this kind of stuff. They're choosing not to do it.
Well, I think all the money has got to be at the cartel's hands. I guess getting them to do public projects would be hard. They'd rather just put pallets of cash in the bank,
Probably so.
I guess.
Anyway, well, thank you. Like I said, I don't know much about it. I'll keep listening. I'm tired of the protest. I just am so suspicious anymore about anyone protesting.
Yeah, start being for something instead of against everything, right?
Correct.
Absolutely.
Correct. But I spend more time on the positive, on what's happening on our side. I just hope I just hope we win the midterms.
We need more bravery.
The Democrats just. Oh yes.
Like Trump. Trump's a brave man. I mean, for him to do what he's doing right now in Iran, it's not because he's trying to impress anybody or do anything. He's doing something that needs to be done at great risk to everybody, including himself. It's at risk to him politically. One wrong step and he becomes Jimmy Carter. Remember, Jimmy Carter did a rescue, and it failed. And the planes crashed and burned. People died out in the desert. They never even rescued anybody from Iran. Remember that? Back in the 70s.
Right. I do remember that.
They Operation Equal Claw or something like that. And it was a total failure and it wasn't well planned. They did the same thing this time and Trump approved it. I'm going to talk about it later. It's bigger than you think it was. It's a huge operation. And he approved it. And
talking about the rescue of the guys?
On Sunday. On Sunday. Yeah. So, Friday and Sunday.
That was just awesome.
Hundreds of aircraft, hundreds of personnel. All put them at risk. Every one of them put them at risk. Now, a president that's worried about midterm elections would never do that. You know what? I just love the fact that he's got such honor. He's doing the right thing, regardless of what it costs. It doesn't matter. We're going to do the right thing. And to have the left bash him for it is really pissing me off a little bit, Sandy.
The left bashes over absolutely nothing.
Man.
And you may not like me calling them this, but I think when I watch a Democrat man or a Democrat woman, I see prissy all over them. Prissy. They are not. Trump is a man. They were so upset about what he said. In some tweet that we've got a stupid woman in our state legislature, Democrat, that I don't know her name. She's not, she doesn't represent us, but who wants the 25th Amendment used against Trump because that proves he's crazy.
That's Illinois.
And then a Democrat man, that, we're going to win the midterms because Trump's crazy, so
right.
They'll say like 1 week that he's dying and another week he's crazy. They're just horrible people.
It's throwing everything against the wall, see what sticks. They've got 42 issues they want to impeach him on now. 42. Probably 43 since the F-bomb.
And they would do 42 trials or whatever you call it.
Yeah. It doesn't matter.
They are horrible, horrible people. I wish more people understood that.
James Carville came out and just said it straight. I don't know if you saw it. Well, you sent it to me, didn't you? The James Carville stuff, I think.
The one about where he wants to have TDS, he hates Trump.
Yes,
that one?
all that stuff. But he says, you just wait. When the Democrats get in power, they're going to go after you. They're going to go after your kids. You know,
Well, and isn't that horrible? That's
Yeah.
what they did to the January 6th people. And you've got Democrats, well, they deserved it. They didn't deserve that.
No.
Those people, a lot of them, they just walked inside.
They
didn't do anything wrong. And you're talking about 3 hours versus days that the Democrats were burning down cities and murdering people.
Right.
You know, it's just, I just wish more people would get away from them. Some want to stay a Democrat, but recognize what they are.
I think more people
and they have changed. They are not like they were years ago.
I think more people are getting away. And the Democrats right now have to kill the SAVE Act, because the SAVE Act will kill them, because people have moved away. And if they don't cheat in elections, they can't win.
Right.
I mean, win a majority, they'll win.
Trump wants us to call it the Save America Act.
Yeah.
So I just thought I'd point that out, because I read that yesterday again. Anyway, but he really is a man, and he's a leader. He's also exceptionally smart. I mean, we've got a really smart president. I'm really disappointed in the Supreme Court on the tariff issue. And I watched Mark Levin talking about the birthright citizenship.
Right.
And Trump's right on that. And I just hope the Supreme Court, some of them, I think they become cowards because Biden and others let people attack them. You know, like go after Kavanaugh and almost murder him.
Yeah.
They're trying to assassinate him.
Yeah.
And they need to not be cowards. Levin said it better than me. And he said, you know, we've got a different president now. He's going to protect you. Biden, I think, really wanted some of them killed. If he could think.
Victor David Hansen mentioned it too. You know, that.
Oh, okay.
That
I haven't heard.
Supreme Court will he says I think they all agree that the birthright citizenship doesn't make sense, and Trump is right, but they won't rule in his favor because of the repercussions. Well,
you know, it'll kill our country. Trump's right.
Yeah, I know.
Because the Chinese and other countries, the Chinese are paying, you know, like different individuals paying for maybe like 10 or 100 surrogate women.
Yeah.
And then they have all these children in the United States. So they come back and get indoctrinated in China, and then they can send them back to the United States when they want, because now they're citizens. And it is a death knell to our country. I didn't even know all that was going on. It's basically listening and learning. And you find out that, you know, that's just a group of Chinese people doing it. It is the death knell
of
industry. Our country if these people won't do what's right. And you said that a little while ago. President Trump does what's right.
Right.
We need the Supreme Court to do what's right. And basically, we're not asking them to do something wrong. Follow the Constitution.
Right.
And listen to it. Like in 1866, 1868, they wrote legislation, and then they recognized that a president could just change it because a Confederate vice president after Lincoln was killed came in and he vetoed it. They overturned his veto, and that they realized they needed to get that 14th Amendment in.
Right.
I think that's the right number. And they worded it a little different, but it still had exactly the same meaning, that if you had an allegiance to a foreign country, you could not be a citizen of our country. So basically, if they just need some frickin' guts. And we got two of them at least that do, but they need some guts. And like I said, we're not asking them to do anything wrong. Follow the Constitution. Follow what they meant when they wrote that.
Most of them are too worried about being reelected.
Wish they would.
And it's so much easier not to risk, like what Trump risked.
But they don't have to worry about being reelected. They're Supreme Court people.
Oh, Supreme Court doesn't. No, you're right. No, I'm talking politicians. Yeah.
Right. But basically, I'm talking about the Supreme Court.
Right.
Follow the Constitution. Do what's right. That's all you got to do. It's so simple. It kills me. They want to play these games, and the woman lady, she's so disappointing. Conservative. She loves the Constitution. She's been a big disappointment. I thought she was going to be really great. How stupid was I?
Yeah.
Coney Barrett.
I know who you mean, Amy.
So
yeah.
Yes. So anyway, I better let you go
Thank
and
you,
see if somebody else to call.
Okay.
You have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye, Sandy.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, she reads a lot. She stays and she sends me a lot of stuff, which is always interesting. But I can't emphasize enough on Trump the courage he has to do the things he does, and to agree to that, to go after Iran after 47 years. It wasn't a political move. It wasn't something to help gel in the midterm elections. In fact, if anything, it leaves so much opportunity to make a mistake, too much opportunity, to have a disaster. And then this going after this down pilot. What a tremendous risk. And trust in our fighting forces, and trust in our security forces and everything. And Trump gave it to him and says, it's yours, do it. Didn't micromanage it, didn't say limit it, didn't do anything, at least from what I understand. Neither you nor I were there, but from all I understand, and watching the generals talk about him and Hegseth talk about him and all, I gave him the praise, not for firing up the airplane and going in. He didn't. He had the guts to trust them to do it without, and did not, and just say, get it done. And they sent hundreds of aircraft, hundreds of personnel to save one man. And really, it is about the one man, but it's not really. It's about our reputation, about our civic pride, about who we are as a people, and all of that, the whole thing. And it sets a tone, it sets a message. Don't mess with us. It just does. And how they survived it, I listened, and I'll get to that probably the next hour. I listened to some special forces guys explain what really happened on that thing, and go through the rescue and what was entailed as far as they know. They have active personnel that do know that they're talking to, that understood what was going on. Nothing secret, but all the stuff that they used, and the problems they ran into. Everything that could go wrong did, I think. Tons of things went wrong. C-130s got stuck in the sand and stuff. It was amazingly bad, but they're well trained, and they went to option B, option C, option D. Let's go to plan Y. Yeah. Well, what professionals? It's just mind blowing, amazing. What they did to get that airman out, that colonel. Yeah, dude 44, Bravo. That's his. It's not his real name. That's his call sign, I guess. I guess the call sign of the airplane was dude 44. I think that's right. And then Alpha was the pilot, and Bravo was the WISO, weapon systems officer. And I'll discuss a little bit of that after I get through the potential learning data centers. We're not learning centers. No, we're not doing the learning centers, or that would be learning centers anyway. Let me see. I already mentioned Katie LaForce, and she's questioning. She begs them to reconsider. We're in a drought. She's right. We are. I think it's a wrong decision to block a data center. It's the right decision to fix the drought with technology. Priscilla Ruduas also, please really consider the residents and community as you make these decisions. These are very impactful long-term for us, for our children, for our future generations. You're right, Priscilla. It is. for our children and future generations to build it, about making our community stronger, more diverse, more jobs, more opportunities. Of course, that's not what she's saying. She's opposed to it because she's scared that our leaders won't be strong enough to build a better grid. Our leaders won't be strong enough to build better water opportunities. Our leaders won't be strong enough, and she's right too, depending on who we elect. But we need to be brave enough to do the right things and to move forward. We need these things in the country, and we can't just say NIMBY, not in my backyard. Go do it somewhere else because we're happy right where we are. The Amish did that years ago, and I respect it. Now the Amish, they don't do electricity or cars. They have horse-drawn buggies. They're living like they did 150, 200 years ago. For religious reasons, all the right reasons, wonderful people. I grew up around them in Delaware, and they picked a spot to stay. But we don't need to be that. We're in society. Or I guess you could go be Amish. Or you could say, okay, I want to be like a 1970s America, and I don't want to grow, but find a place to do it. But please don't turn you into that, because then you end up like Ela Bend eventually. We're better than that. And we need to find ways to get through these things. I agree. But we should be protesting our leaders to do the right thing and build desalination plants, to build alternatives, not fighting over the same drops of water, which we know aren't enough. And say, well, it's too bad, but now we can't progress in industry because we don't have the water for it. There's nothing we can do. Yes, there is. There's a lot we could do. And it's not getting done. And I'm not painting all the legislators with the same brush. Believe me, there's a lot of them that would like to. There's just not a majority. And we don't have a governor to sign anything anyway. It just wouldn't happen, unfortunately. If we did want to do a big project, I don't think that would happen with her. I'm going to take a break and be right back. This is Russ Clark Show. Where are we? Mortgage One Studios, where we are. We'll be back.
Life was strong, now it's gone. Dancing solo, moving on. All the tears are gone. Let's celebrate. The reason comes. Freedom inside. Break a party. Rock the night. No more fear. It's alright. Party, party. You break a party, party. Ooh, party, party. You break a party, party. Ooh, party, party. You break a party, party. Ooh, party, party. You break a party, party. Ooh.
Wi-Fi.
की नई कहानी बना खुशियों के दिन फिर आएंगे जो ना तेरा.
And we're back. Mortgage One. I said I want to talk about, and I'm going to do it this hour. Let me do that now. If I can find it, I want to talk about the rescue that happened on Easter. Okay. Well, I know I looked at it just a minute ago. I do more research than I can actually get out on the air. Well, did I set it aside? No. All right. Bear with me. Gotta find it. Okay. Oh, I was looking for the wrong article. Okay, the article I had that I was looking for had to do with Mark Siegel, but it has the information I'm looking for. Mark Siegel is a doctor. I think he's a Fox News contributor or something like that. He talks about the survivor, the weapons systems officer, the dude 44 Bravo. We know his name's not been released, but we know he's a colonel in the Air Force, and he was in that aircraft that went down. He talked about his ability to survive. I mean, Siegel was just amazed because he sustained leg fractures. Or it says, how does such a person live with such a high chance of having sustained leg fractures? I don't know that he's seen the medical on this guy. We know he had some issues with his legs and his ankle or whatever, and he was still able to go up 7,000 feet. And he says, and how do Navy SEALs, Air Force Special Operations, Army Special Operations, Aviation, Search and Rescue, and combat medics flanked by 150 aircraft possibly find him? As CIA Director John Radcliffe said, it's like finding a grain of sand in the desert. Of course, he did have a beacon of some kind. He had the ability to do that, send out a distress call. And I see that my wife called while I was on break. I wasn't near my phone. Sorry. I wasn't near my phone. But good morning, Helen. Good morning. He's amazed about the skill, the great skill, combination skill of the rescuers, God's presence. And we've heard that a lot in this conversation about this rescue, including from generals and from Trump and from others about God's presence. He said the airman's deep faith and the body survival mechanism known as the fight or flight. And it was SEAL Team 6 commandos that came in and rescued him. And of course, the Air Force officer climbed to 7,000 feet on a ridge with some injuries to his he's bleeding, apparently heavily bleeding with injuries. And we know to his ankle, I don't know what, to his legs or what. But President Trump even said during the briefing on Monday, the airman scaled cliff faces, bleeding rather profusely, treated his own wounds. He could have used bandages and tourniquets to help him stop the flow of blood, but he would also have soon needed water to replace the lost fluids. He is reportedly a man of deep spiritual faith, which clearly helped him to survive. And when he finally made radio contact, he sent the message, God is good. That was his first message. Dr. Siegel says survival under these circumstances is clearly a medical miracle. The team that rescued him were sent by God, angels sent by God. He said, maybe that was Trump. That was Trump that said that. But Siegel's writing this article because he's agreeing with Trump that his chances of survival were so slim. He was spotted by the CIA, and that came out yesterday during some of the briefings. CIA spotted him on a camera, and the CIA was 40 miles away. Probably on some kind of aircraft, I would imagine, 40 miles away. And that's according to the president. They kept the camera on him for 45 minutes. He wasn't moving. They said, probably wrong, but we're seeing something moving. This is a vast mountain, vast, thick, with bushes, trees. We see something moving 40 miles away. It's the head of a human being. I'm telling you, it's moving. And then all of a sudden, 45 minutes later, he moved a lot, stood up, and they said, we have him. And that was the CIA that was watching. They have a camera that can point that out and 40 miles? That's like putting a camera from Yuma on Welton, seeing who's going in church on Sunday. Amazing optics. Well, very good. The Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, he talked about it there, and he says, in that moment of isolation and danger, his faith and fighting spirit shone through. And then Siegel talks a little bit about the human physiology. He said the body kicks in fight or flight mode, also known as acute stress response, and an outpouring of stress hormones, including cholesterol. The heart rate, blood pressure, the rate of breathing increase. There's a release of energy as the body shuts blood towards the muscle, away from the skin. The person feels increased alertness, and all the senses are heightened, which creates a survival advantage. Though a person can go several days without food, water is essential for organ function, and dehydration can quickly lead to organ failure, especially in the presence of ongoing bleeding. It's unknown how much water the down colonel had, but he was unlikely to be sufficient for someone with substantial injuries. But yet he survived. Clearly, American medical miracle. Apparently, the colonel's spirit to survive overcame both the enormous physical challenges and the looming danger he faced inside Iran. He didn't quit. He didn't give up. And I heard a special forces guy that does a podcast talk about that, about the Sears training and all. It's a search and rescue and all that. And just he said he learned in that, and he was a pilot in the Gulf War and stuff, but that he knew how many people would come to rescue him if he went down. He knew the people that would rescue him if he went down. If something happened, he had to bail out of his plane. And he said, there's no way I would let them down by not surviving, which is kind of a nice way to put it, I guess. But he says, knowing that the people are coming, and to have such respect for that, saying, I've got to survive, for the team. The team's coming, and I got to be here for them when they get here. So what a great attitude. And that was the attitude of a fighter pilot that faced that every day, that knew what he would do if he got shot down. He would survive. And I guess Sears training teaches that. I want to talk about some of the details of these planes that went. This is this one plane that went down, and both the pilot and weapon systems officer bailed out of it. They come out together. I guess when they activate it, it activates both seats. But at 4:40 a.m. is when that plane went down, so it was still dark when they were shot. And Trump likened it to a lucky shot. Like, they don't really have a lot of equipment left. They've taken out a lot of radar systems. They've taken out a lot of stuff, and they don't know exactly what it was that hit them. I guess they've not released it if they do know. But it could have been a man pad. But usually they're flying higher than that, for a shoulder fired. But there hasn't been anything released on exactly what took them down. But as soon as it went down, as soon as that happened, 21 military aircraft flew in. And that was just immediately. And they stayed there for 7 hours, all through daylight. And they were receiving fire from small arms. Some of them were getting bullet holes in them, but they kept coming. Helicopters came back with bullet holes, and they're flying low. There was an A-10 there, and they call it a Sandy. And I guess it comes back to Vietnam era, the name Sandy, and Sandy's the guy that's going to come rescue you. And the Sandy was an A-10. An A-10 came, and the first thing they do is an A-10's heavily, it's a brute when it comes to fighting. It's got great gun on it, and they come in first to keep the enemy away from the down pilot to make sure that they're okay. And then the Jolly Green 2, I guess they call it the NH-60W helicopter, comes in, picks him up, and that helicopter took bullets. They took bullet holes, nothing serious. I think one of the crew members ended up with a injury, but nothing real serious, because it wasn't on me. But the A-10's job was to find and locate and to keep combatants away, and then stay between the helicopter and the enemy and continue to take fire while fighting them off. That was the A-10. And it was hit and kept fighting and kept coming and didn't abandon its post. And when the helicopter picked up the pilot and left, of course, the A-10 stays there and continues to fight until they're safe, until the helicopter's a safe distance. And then he took off to go back, and his plane was too damaged to land. And in fact, that's what he ascertained is he got over water. He flew over water intentionally because his plane wasn't safe to land. And I don't know what the damage was, but the pilot would know. And so he bailed out over water and got rescued himself. And that's the kind of heroes we've got. And that was just the pilot that they got, shortly after, during daylight hours. He bailed out at 4:40 a.m. and then he was picked up during the daylight sometime in the morning. They said the planes were flying for 7 hours, but including HC-130s and stuff, refueling planes and stuff. I guess these combat planes stayed there as long as they had opportunities to still protect them. I mean, didn't need to go back and reload or something. They didn't empty their guns or their bombs or whatever they had. And that was for Dude 44 Alpha. And we know they got him on Good Friday. And that still left the Wizzo, Weapons Systems Officer, Dude 44 Bravo. And he's a colonel, which it's not that uncommon to have a colonel flying, but you have more that aren't colonels, I guarantee you. In fact, generals can fly. They do. General Hudson that lived here locally, retired here locally, a Marine, and he was a pilot, and he still flew as a general. I guess general does what they want to do. But to go after Dude 44 Bravo, they sent 155 aircraft. And this is according to the testimony that came out of the conversation with the generals and Trump to talk about what they could talk about. Of course, they're not going to tell us details. But 155 aircraft, 4 bombers, 64 fighters, 48 tankers, 13 rescue. They flew for 7 hours to get Dude 44 Bravo out of there. And some of the, and of course, and there's drones also. There were drones in the first one. They didn't count the number of drones, but they had a lot of stuff going on. And they also had 13 rescue planes or helicopters. They even used 9 planes as a decoy 25 miles away to confuse the enemy, to let them know, misdirection to the enemy. There's they flew 2 MC-130J special operations planes. These are the cargo planes into what they thought was a runway. It probably was a runway or something on a farm or something nearby to set up a base of operation inside Iran, inside enemy territory, which is just amazing. Now, according to blog that I listened to that included some special forces guys, he said they generally they'll fly an Osprey in there first to test the runway to make sure it's compatible. Which, according to him, he said they did that and it was fine. It held the Osprey just fine. Of course, the Osprey's a vertical takeoff and landing. When these MC-130s came in, apparently they were too heavy for it, and they broke through the layers on the top, and they got into this fine sand, and there was no way to get them out. They didn't have the equipment, they didn't have anything to get them to fly them out. And of course, they're filled with cargo, and they're filled with personnel that has, I don't know how many personnel, but they had to have enough people on that plane to unload 3 small helicopters and put them together. They're called MH-6 Little Bird. And these little helicopters, I guess, are more maneuverable, they're faster, they're still packed with a lot of firepower to go into these situations. But they don't have the range to fly back out. No, they were on a one-way trip pretty much, unless they could get them back on the C-130s. But who knows? I mean, we don't know the details of that. We know they didn't make it out. They didn't have the range. They're for nice little aircraft, but they're not like some of the bigger aircraft or the Ospreys or something that can fly in and out. Well, they use these small helicopters to not only protect the down pilot or the down Wizzo officer, but to pick him up and everything. And they did. They got him picked up, and they brought him back, and to the base. And the base has, the 130s that were going to fly out on are not able to fly. Like I said, everything went wrong apparently. They couldn't fly, and of course, every jihadi within range was making their way there. They were all coming, and that's, and there's some footage available showing what some of the aircraft did. And I'm talking helicopters and as well as fighters, and of course the A-10 is a great ground, and they just decimated some of these. When they say firefights, it's kind of amazing what was going on, and they decimated a lot of these people on the ground, even that did, to keep them back. To keep them away. In fact, when they picked up the Wizzo, they were 3 kilometers out. The pack of people in these aircraft and stuff were bombing roads to stop the advancement of the Iranians. They were bombing roads and shooting up their vehicles and the whole bit. A lot of them were on foot. But they were able to squeak them out and get them out. And this is where minutes count, I guess. But they still couldn't get back. Well, the special operations flew in some other planes that could land, I guess, lighter, and they squeezed them into I think there were 3 of them. These aren't official records, but this is what some people are saying. In fact, one of them, there's a video of one of them flying low, like 100 foot off the ground through the terrain, leaving once they loaded up, because they had to get the engineers off, the people that put the little birds together, the crew. There was crew, and the pilots and the engineers and stuff on the C-130s. They all had to be evacuated, and I guess they sent 3 of them in there to get all those personnel out, including the injured colonel, and they flew like a terrain, like low to the ground, and had a pathway to get out of there unharassed. And apparently those planes aren't special forces planes like that. And I forget the number or the type of plane it is. And it was mentioned on the video that I watched, where I watched a video of the plane flying as well. But apparently that's something that you're not going to see very often. They don't try to show those. They don't. Those are something that they don't want you to see, but it got picked up by video on somebody in Iran that put it out there on what it was, and but they got pictures of one of them that flew out, but all of them made it. Everybody got back home 100%, and after after they evacuated real quick, they had whatever aircraft were flying there, somehow they blew up the 3 Little Birds as well as the MC-130Js. They blew up both of them. I mean, some great hardware that was just destroyed. They blew it into oblivion, and I know the Iranians, the Revolutionary Guard or whatever, they got to the site to look it over, and they were putting it out on video on what was going on. They found a pair of underwear that they held up proudly, like they captured a pair of underwear. It was I forget the brand name, but it showed the brand name and everything, and it was had American flag and stripes and stuff on the underwear, and they were holding that up as a prize in a tube of toothpaste or something they found in the wreckage. So they found somebody's underwear, and that was all they captured. After that was that, and hopefully everything was blown up enough to where they don't get any information from the weapons. But the courage it took for everybody involved, the people that were trained to do these kinds of things that are, and the way, I was listening to the podcast from a guy that did that for a living. And he said, once you're trained and once you do those kind of things, that's what you do. You want to go help somebody. You want to get those guys out. I mean, it's not forced. That's what they do. He said, whatever it takes, they're going to go do that. And that's an amazing fighting force. And what courage and what dedication to country and to each other and all of that. Just kind of an amazing thing. But the courage of Donald Trump as a president to okay that after what happened in Iran, 46 years ago. And I think it was Operation Eagle Claw or something, where Jimmy Carter allowed something very similar to go on, and they landed in the desert and all crashed into each other. For some reason, they kicked up dust or something. I don't remember the exact details of it, but the planes end up crashing into each other. And a lot of airmen, a lot of people died in the desert, never reached any kind of destination to get any hostages out. And it was a fiasco. It was a fiasco for the military. It was terrible. It was terrible for Carter. Like I said, it was courage on Donald Trump. He could have become Carter 2.0. Which would have just sunk any chance he has of midterms or anything else. So it wasn't politics that pushed him into this. It was doing what's right instead of doing what's politically correct that made him do this. He did what was right. He doesn't want to see America get into another, like he said, these long-term wars like 19 years in Vietnam, where the politicians were running it and there was so much frustration from the military that they tied their hands behind their back. They couldn't do what they were trained to do. Trump turned them loose. He released the hounds. And that took courage politically. Politically, took huge courage, massive, for Donald Trump. And I know the left is talking about recklessness or crazy. Want to do want to have him thrown out. Enact the 25th Amendment. Vote it. He's mentally impaired. No, he's probably one of the smartest guys in Washington. And the military guys are talking about him, just can't say enough. General Kane, if you remember General Kane, they call him Raisin Kane. He met General Kane during his first term in office. When he went to Iraq, he flew in there, which that's crazy. And to his own like that, they flew Air Force One in there. So he wanted to see it firsthand. He wanted to talk to the generals. He wanted to talk to them. So he went and talked to, he's surrounded by generals all the time, all the aides and the people at the top of the food chain. He wanted to go down and talk to some people down on the ground. And he ran into Raisin Kane. And Raisin Kane was telling him about the mission, what they were trying to do, trying to get rid of the Taliban, and it was going to take 4 years to accomplish the mission and all that. And he talks about this all the time. You'll hear Trump talk about it. I've been to rallies where he explains what happened. And he said, well, General, couldn't you do it any faster? And that's a tough place to put him in, because he's listening to the staff that outrank him, that are above him, that are giving him orders. And he's not going to go to the president of the United States and say, all my superiors are wrong. But he pinned him down and asked him, how fast could you really do it? And he said, 4 weeks. I could do it in 4 weeks. And I guess then they had a real conversation. And Trump gave him the go-ahead. And he came in just under 4 weeks to get done with the staff, the political, I say the political staff, they're generals and they're top of the food chain. We're saying that's what it's going to take. Was 4 years. But the people down on the ground, and I guess Trump learned a lot from that. And he learned on what our capabilities really are, and what we really can do in the military, and that we need to release these guys and turn them loose. And we did it in Venezuela, which they need to make movies about that also. That's tremendous. And we still don't know all the equipment they use and everything they use, but we just know there were hundreds of aircraft in the air. As there was just this rescue mission, 155 aircraft to get Dude 44 Bravo out. And that means hundreds of personnel, because there was bombers and fighters, tankers, rescue aircraft, technicians, refueling. They were refueling these fighters right there. Tankers, 48 of them. They had 48 tankers out there that were refueling these aircraft to keep them in the fight. Amazing operation. This makes me proud of them all. And Trump's got a mission to end this thing, to wrap it up. He doesn't want any long-term wars, drawn out wars or anything. He wants to, it doesn't mean he won't go in and do a military operation and shut it down, and he's going to do that. And I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but there's a deadline coming up on where he's going to bomb some infrastructure. And of course, they're using that infrastructure to move military. It's also shared by civilians, and the left is going crazy on this stuff. The left is saying it's a war crime if you bomb civilians. And of course, that's what's going to get us into a long-term war. That kind of stuff. That's what got us into Vietnam forever. And again, I mentioned Max Bartow. Max Bartow was a friend of mine and a fighter pilot on a Phantom in Vietnam. And he says, we could be in the air and we could watch the MiGs taking off to come fight us. We could watch them. We could see them taking off from airfields that we could easily knock out. We could knock those airfields out. We could have knocked those airfields out before they left the ground. We weren't allowed to. We weren't allowed to do it. That's the politics of it. I think Trump is totally different. He's not doing that. The United Nations, and I've got that here somewhere buried. The United Nations has cautioned Trump and told him, I'm looking for it right now, told him not to bomb, not to bomb the power plants and the bridges, because civilians use them. So he's telling them not to, and said that he would turn them over, for breaking international law. That's NATO. That's our partners. Is it any wonder that we don't do well in these kinds of things? Is it any wonder that we draw these things out for many years? Iran knows it. That's why they're like, no matter how much they're getting beat up, no matter how much that all this is not going their way, that they're going to keep fighting. Because they know that we don't have the heart for it, we don't have the desire for it, and we don't have the public support. And they're counting on it. They're counting on the left going nuts and telling everybody that that it's terrible, that Trump needs to be taken out, and they do it for power. They do it for power only. They don't They don't care. They want to get back in power, and they got to make Trump look bad. And that's where I say he's got courage. And it's UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. He warned Trump administration. Attacking civilian infrastructure in Iran is prohibited under international law. He did that through his spokesman, by the way, Stefan Djerzhak. Even if specific civilian infrastructure were to qualify as a military objective. And this is coming from a UN secretary. And the UN secretary is telling him, like, even though all our adversaries, look at Russia. Russia is bombing all the infrastructure of Ukraine. That was their deal, so that they'd freeze to death. So he bombed them. And of course, Ukraine adapted, and they put in generators, and they're keeping warm in other ways. And then they fix the generation, and they blow it up. And then they fix the generation, they blow it up. But he's warning that if U.S. President Donald Trump moves forward with his threats to strike power plants and bridges, a court would determine whether the attacks amount to war crimes. They're threatening him with war crimes to want to wrap this thing up. I don't know if it's a bluff. I don't know if it's real. But knowing Trump, he doesn't bluff. I don't think. And right now in Iran, they know the plans, and they know Trump enough now. He's not like other presidents. That's why they've been at war with us for 47 years, because we have presidents that won't engage because they're worried politically. They're not brave politically. So, heck, we had Obama and Biden just send them money to keep them appeased as they're building their war machine, as they're building nuclear. We had two presidents feeding them. Because it's going to be 20 years down the road, and I won't have to worry about it. It's going to be after my time, so I don't have to worry about it. It's going to be someone else's problem. So here's what Iranian officials are doing right now. They called on the youth in the country to form human chains around power plants. Yep. Al-Zahra Rami, he's on state television. Secretary of Supreme Council of Youth and Adolescents. He's the one that's telling them. He says, I invite you, all young people, athletes, artists, students, and university students, and their professors, gather Tuesday at 2 p.m. around the power plants that are our national assets and capital, regardless of any taste or political viewpoint, belong to the future of Iran and to the Iranian youth. Yeah. Now, that's very much against international law. And power plants and stuff like that, it's not what Trump wants to do. Obviously, he says that. But he's not going to let this thing drag on. He's going to call it. He's going to make it end. And if they don't have power, they can't fight. And he'll take it. If they don't have bridges, they can't transport. And they got air supremacy to where they're not flying. They can't put a helicopter in the air. They can't put an airplane in the air. What they've got is roads. If they take the bridges out, they don't have that. He's going to end it. Like I say, he's got courage. Otherwise, we spend 17 years in there, or 9 years, or 8 years, whatever we've done in Iraq or Vietnam or whatever. And what the left talked about Saturday particularly was that Trump dropped the F-bomb. I mean, they were just outraged about it. I mean, that's the most important thing they had, was Trump dropped an F-bomb. Well, so did Joe Biden. I don't remember them talking about it. No, I don't approve of it necessarily, but I'll give him the grace. He's frustrated. He doesn't want to hurt anybody. He wants the killing to stop. That's what he keeps saying about Ukraine and Russia. It's stupid. Stop it. Stop it. He wants it done. He doesn't want it. He wants peace. He wants business. He wants productivity. He wants to build hotels and golf courses, not missiles and fighter jets. And he wants to put a stop to it. Iranians abroad right now Iranians that don't live in Iran, saying their families are being persecuted right now because they're outside Iran. And I listened to some podcasts from a gentleman that has his family members in Iran, and very informative. And he ends up getting a lot of video out of Iran. He said they're facing persecution, arrest of family members, property being seized. They're taking people's homes and property as tools to silence the dissident voices. They don't want anyone speaking out against them. And there's a pervasive internet shutdown. That started from the beginning, that they shut the internet down as much as they could, that nobody can get information out. He says those overseas play a critical role in monitoring events taking place during the government crackdown on any domestic protest or dissidents, which you still can get some. And you can see there's protests going on right now. Apparently, dissidents have taken over 3 major cities in Iran. That was the news reports I got last night from some of the people that have relatives living in Iran, and showing pictures of the stuff that's going on. Authorities have been warned that the Iranian public against speaking to the media, and now are engaging in a concerted strategy of harassing and imprisoning family members in Iran as well. It's a new anti-espionage law. It was approved last year, allows for the seizure of property of those who are deemed to support Iranian's enemy. More than 200 of such cases have been brought before courts under this legal regime. That's that they know about, I guess. I don't know how much come out now. This guy's been able to get it out. Now, he did say he doesn't know the current whereabouts of his father, and his father hasn't had any contact with him for 3 or 4 days. So who knows? They don't know. Even he doesn't know, and he's got a lot of ears in Iran from family members or friends. Critics of the regime are frequently branded traitors, agents of Israel, or mercenaries. Now, something's interesting. I haven't checked it yet today, but with all this promise of escalation in Iran, the stock market went up yesterday in anticipation of today. No, I don't know. And I haven't heard from Edward in a couple of days. Now, I know Edward was in, he flew to the Middle East a couple of days ago. I don't know if he's still there or not. In fact, let me check. No, I haven't heard from him today. So he may still be out of country. Although quite often when he's out of country, I'm still in contact with him. But the Dow did go up yesterday. But right now it's down $238. It's down 0.51% today. So that was short-lived. It started to go up. But no idea. I'm not the financial guy, but I enjoy having those conversations with Edward about it. But it rose. Standard & Poor's 500 rose 0.4%. The Dow Jones 0.4%, and the Nasdaq 0.5%. Right now, it's down that much, so it was short-lived. Maybe the president's given Iran a deadline of Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. That's today, so that's 5 o'clock our time. The clock's ticking, and I don't know what's going to change him. I mean, he's got contacts other than the leadership that is boasting, that we're not listening to you. 3 major cities have been taken over. The news I got last night, I don't know if any of it's true. You can't believe everything you see right now that's coming out of that place. But it showed a lot of riots in the streets, a lot of people celebrating, screaming celebrations. They love Trump. Yeah, those guys, the ones that are celebrating. Trump mentioned in one of his speeches that the people from Iran that have friends and family in Iran are telling him to keep bombing. The ones that don't like the regime, that want the regime to end, are saying keep bombing. And Trump was amazed by it. He said, even though some of it's close to their homes, even though some of those targets are near them, they don't care. They want this to end. And this is the closest they've come to it in 47 years. They want it to be done. The Elon Omar has been watching. Of course, she's a Somalia. She's a naturalized citizen from Somalia, a Democrat out of Minnesota. She's called for President Trump to be, he's an unhinged lunatic. It's not okay. Invoke the 25th Amendment. Impeach, remove. The unhinged lunatic must be removed from office. Yeah, she's incensed. But she's got $30 million this year. I mean, last year she was broke, but today she's got $30 million from that needs to be investigated. You just don't pop up with $30 million. Especially when you see all the fraud and stuff that's going on with their constituents. Well, she says that comment because of Trump. Trump said Tuesday will be Power Plant Day and Bridge Day, all wrapped up in one in Iran. There will be nothing like it. Open the blank and straight, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. Praise be to Allah. He said that on Easter Sunday. And that had the Democrats more whipped into a frenzy than I would have thought. But they're just outraged that a president would say such a thing. Look at that. And now Elon Omar becomes unhinged, calling Donald Trump unhinged. Senator Mark Kelly got in on it. I really don't appreciate him. No. I'm embarrassed to have him as our senator. He put out on X, he says, threatening to target power plants and other non-military targets is not strength. If those words became orders to destroy civilian infrastructure with no valid military purpose, it's hard to see how they would not violate the laws of armed conflict. America leads best with strength, discipline, and professionalism. Yeah, just like in Vietnam, right? Illegal orders to make civilians suffer would be a black mark on our military and our country. He's not giving up on the illegal orders. Yeah, that's his. Ignore him. Don't do it. Revolt against. Have a coup against the commander. I don't think that's going to happen. The military loves him. As far as civilian infrastructure, and he says, and he puts in there, orders to destroy civilian infrastructure with no valid military purpose. So you can't think of a military purpose to take out the bridges that they're using to transport military hardware. That's the only way they can transport it now. They're trying to replenish stuff right now, and they've got to truck it in because the airway's not available to them. We've got air superiority. They got to truck it in. So take out the bridges and you take out their transportation. I think that's a military purpose. And the same with the factories that are building military hardware need power. And if you take it out, you're going to do it. And yes, civilians also share, they drive over the same bridge and civilians plug into the same power. They do. But if you use that as a criteria, then we're going to end up with Vietnam. And Iran knows that we don't have the stomach for 17 years and all our treasure and 50,000 dead. We don't have it. Trump wants to end this thing fast. He doesn't want a drawn-out war. And that's what this political correctness of Mark Kelly would be. It would be a drawn-out. We got to be more political. And it would kill us. Like I say, Trump has courage. I think Mark Kelly's a coward. Senator Jeff Merkley, Democrat out of Oregon, said President Trump's profanity-laden Easter threat to attack Iran's civilian infrastructure, power plants, and bridges are the words of a frustrated and immoral madman. Many experts agree that such attacks would be a war crime, under international law. Yeah, many Democrat experts would agree. To our military leaders, remember this. You are legally required to refuse orders to commit war crimes. Yes, that is true. You are legally required to not commit war crimes. Absolutely. And when he says that many experts agree that it would be a war crime, many experts agree it would not be a war crime. It would end a war. Trump is about ending wars, finishing the wars, not getting involved in them. Not long term. He promised that. He promised he wouldn't want any long term wars. He wants to get out of them. You can't do that with your hands tied behind your back. You've got to stop their ability to make war, period. We did it during World War II. We won, we got surrender in World War II. Yeah, we dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, if you remember. Horrible thing. No worse than the Tokyo fire bombings. The Tokyo fire bombings took more lives, civilian lives. But they killed hundreds of thousands of civilians. They did. And saved hundreds of thousands of lives doing it, unfortunately. I mean, it's a terrible thing. And I'm not suggesting we bomb civilians at all. I'm not suggesting that at all. But I think taking out the power plants and bridges is very reasonable. If you really want to put a stop to it, and you really want to grind it to a halt and get this thing to stop, then it does make sense. I mean, and he's not doing it without negotiations, without trying to talk sense into them, without showing them, demonstrating to them that the superiority we've got militarily is nothing you can do anything about. We've taken away your ability to do anything. You spent decades and billions of dollars building up this huge masses of missiles and drones and all this military defensive stuff. And we've already taken it from you, at least most of it. We've taken most all of it away. We've taken away your planes. We've taken away your ships. We've taken it all away. So don't make us do this. I mean, the same thing was done to Japan. They asked Japan for surrender. They said, we don't want to keep killing people. Let's end this. Japan said no. And we didn't say, well, we can't kill anybody else, right? It's not fair. Because we'd still be fighting them today. We'd still be fighting Japan. We can't keep fighting Iran. It needs to end. Strait of Hormuz needs to open. And we need to support Donald Trump, the only politician with guts to step forward. And I think he's doing it the right way. He gave him a few days, gave him 10 days, said, I'm talking to him, I'm putting it off. I mean, he's not in a hurry to do this stuff. This is not the first thing he went after. He took out the military. He took out the leadership once, twice, 3 times. He wants to bring that country back to the people. And that commentator that I listened to that's from Iran, said there was a poll of 70% of the people do not want the regime. They want him gone. Now, I don't know how the heck you do that poll. I don't know if I believe it. It's interesting that he said it. I don't know if that's true. I don't know how you check that. I don't believe a lot of the polls that happen in the United States. I think a lot of them are jaded or push polls or something like that. But I'm listening to this guy, and he seems to be very confident that the Iranian people are different than the Iranian leadership. And I think that's true about the Democrat Party too, by the way. Democrat Party is totally different than the Democrats I know. In fact, the polling number shows it. 85% of the people in the United States want the SAVE Act. 100% of the political leaders on the Democrat side say no, except for Fetterman. They say no. Maybe Iran's the same way. Maybe Iran is. And maybe Iran doesn't want this thing to slip back to where this regime continues their murderous ways and takes over. And maybe they're willing to give up some power plants that can be rebuilt, just like our airplanes can be rebuilt from that rescue. We can rebuild power plants. We can rebuild bridges. but turn the lives of these Iranians free that want it. And my understanding is Trump has armed some of them. That there has been a shipment of arms that have gone to some of the rebels and stuff. Again, nothing I can confirm, but that would make sense to me that that's happened. But I certainly haven't seen any video of a armed conflict or skirmish with the Iranian Guard. Don't know if it's ever happened. I haven't heard a report of it, but I've heard it is. Bernie Sanders also criticized Trump's. The ravings of a dangerous and mentally unbalanced individual. Congress has got to act now in this war. I agree. We've got to end the war, but we can't walk away. If we walk away, granted, they're going to be incapable of causing as much problems, but they're going to be emboldened to keep the Strait of Hormuz under their control. They're going to be emboldened to build it again. They're going to know that, as powerful as the United States is, as powerful as we are, we don't have the political courage to carry anything out. We didn't have it in Iraq. We didn't have it in Vietnam. Not since, let's see, what was the last one we went in? Grenada? Was that Ronald Reagan under Grenada, where it was 3 days? And Reagan was a little like Trump. A lot like Trump. He had courage. Some of what he did was, could have got him in worse trouble than he did. He already got investigated with the Iran-Contra stuff, where he was trying to do the right thing. Congress wouldn't let him, and he went around it. That's not right. I'm not recommending it. And then he got the Ollie North trials and all that kind of stuff. Reagan was no slouch. Reagan's tear down this wall, Mr. Gorbachev guy. And I don't think we've had a tough one since him until Trump. We haven't had that. And Reagan was no one you're going to mess with. I mean, Reagan, as fun as he was to listen to, and he told wonderful speeches and stories, Trump's a little more caustic, but I see more similarities than differences. In fact, I have a campaign sticker from Ronald Reagan at the house. It says it's a button. I'm sorry, it's a metal button with pin on it. Put on your shirt. Got a big picture of Ronald Reagan. It says "Make America Great Again." Ronald Reagan. I don't think a lot of people know that, but MAGA started under Reagan. Didn't start under Trump. Started under Reagan. "Make America Great Again" was a Reagan slogan. Look it up. It was not. It was adopted by Trump. And I think Trump carries it forward. But not since Reagan have we had a president like Trump. And the left doesn't know what to do with it. They're contradicting themselves on a regular basis. They're against things now that they've been for their whole lives. Just anything to dislodge Trump. Nothing to do about helping the country be better. Nothing to do with promoting America or its values. Just destroy Trump at all cost. It's an unfortunate time we're living in. It's interesting though. That's why I do this, so we can talk about it. That's why I'm amazed about it enough to watch the videos that I watch, to do the research that I do. It's amazing and scary all at the same time that it's happening. But the opportunities of greatness coming out of it are so huge, and that's why the left has got us. That's why they got to get rid of him now. They don't want greatness to come out of it. What would the leftists survive for if there wasn't a bunch of poor people for them to say, "I'll give you everything you need"? That's how they govern. I give you what you need. You don't need to work. Trump's not like that. He's building opportunity, not equity. Opportunity. It's a total different thing. The country was based on opportunity, not equity. It's equality. We have equality. And Mandani's all about equity. In fact, he got a new plan. I don't know if you know that. Yeah, Mandani, he's the mayor of New York City. He's released his preliminary citywide racial equity plan. It's unbelievable that he's doing this. When I read it, I I'm like, you're not paying attention or something. But maybe he looks at us and say, you're not paying attention. I'm not going to quit. I'm going to keep pushing equity and DEI and everything and jobs based on race, no matter what you say or the Supreme Court says or anybody else. We're going to do it. Well, the Donald Trump's Justice Department's a little skepticism is looming on whether this is even legal. But Mandami explained to the press, he went at a press meeting about it, press conference. He promised to release within 100 days in his office the report, and it shows racial disparities in areas like housing, education, income. So they did research based on race, and because they're looking for racial disparities, they're going to find them. And he wants to establish a new framework for New York City to measure affordability, understanding inequity, and plans for a more equitable future. In other words, everyone lives in the same house. That's communism, by the way. That's socialism, communism. It may not be much of a house, but everyone's got the same. The true cost of living measure offers an honest account of what it actually costs to live in the city and who is being left behind. It shows that this is not a crisis affecting a small minority of New Yorkers. It's a crisis touching a vast majority of our city in every borough and every neighborhood. That's according to Manami. I don't doubt they're in financial trouble, and they're worse trouble now because he's in charge. Because the billionaires, the people that are paying the bills, are leaving. They said enough of this nonsense. And they're pulling out, just like they're pulling out of California. And then you're going to have equity, all right, but it's going to be at a much lower level because the people you're jealous over are going to be gone. So, hey, we got equity. Everyone's making poverty wage. Good. But we know this crisis, and this is Mandami, we know this crisis is not felt equally. Black and Latino New Yorkers who have been pushed out of the city for decades are bearing the brunt. The preliminary racial equity plan is where we begin to reverse this pattern. We've been working on reversing this pattern by throwing money at it for many decades, since the 1960s. The war on poverty and the war on that. We've got, and I think it was New York City that said they spent $81,000. They did a report that found out how much money they spent on the homeless, divided by the number of homeless, and they spent $81,000 per homeless person. And what have you accomplished? Do we have less homeless or more? Are they in better shape than they were or worse? Well, why don't you do that study? And homelessness and problems have just increased since we've had a war on homelessness, because we take away people's souls, man. We say, okay, rely on government, do nothing, and let us take care of you. And they lose pride, they lose everything, but they exist to complain that they don't have more. It needs to stop. These reports make one thing clear. We cannot tackle systemic racial inequity without confronting the affordability crisis head on. And we cannot solve the cost of living crisis without dismantling systemic racial inequity. He's stuck on race. He's going to tie it to economics and say, because of race, the economics are haves and have-nots. Because of race. He is not a white guy, and he grew up rich. He's got a lot of stuff. How did he get equity? The DOJ Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights, Harmit Dillon, which I like, sounds fishy illegal. He will review. He put that out on X. And of course it's illegal. It's race-based. And the Supreme Court's ruled for it. Ruled and said, look, you can't make policy on race. You can't. They don't care. Libs of TikTok wrote, straight up racism against white people. Pula. It's just Pula? Yeah. The reality is Mandani is implementing blatantly racist policies that reward and punish people based on their skin color. True. The city's billed the racial equity plan as the first time any New York City administration has required major city agencies to examine their work through a racial equity lens and identify and eliminate disparities. How do you do that? It's impossible. And that's the point. I think it's just to create chaos. It's to create chaos and hatred, and that's got to be the goal, because that's the only thing this is going to do. And how many people do we have mixed race in this country? Most of us. What team do they pick? Well, they'll pick whichever one suits them economically, obviously, The plan sets goals across 7 domains that include children, youth, older adults, and families. Economy, housing and preservation, infrastructure and environment, health and well-being, community safety, rights and accountability, and good governance and inclusive decision-making. Report cites a sizable gap in the median net worth of white households compared to black households, while reporting that black New Yorkers also have a lower life expectancy, and suggests the way to address those gaps is an expansive framework featuring more than 200 agency-level goals, over 800 proposed strategies, and roughly 600 performance indicators intended to track progress over time. It sounds like a plan that has no one direction. It's every direction since, so it does nothing, probably. I haven't read it yet. It's not been released. When you're talking 800 proposed strategies, I don't know how many they incorporate. I don't know. The inequity has been embedded in the foundation of our city and nation since their inception. Dismantling it requires a collective effort. That's according to the New York Chief Equity Officer. They have one. And the New York City Mayor's Office of Equity and Racial Justice Commission. I'd like to tell you this. None of this was true, but it is. The New York City preliminary citywide racial equity plan reflects the city's commitment to systematically transform, turning our values into actions. From housing and healthcare to education and infrastructure, every agency plays a pivotal role in reshaping how government serves New Yorkers. This plan outlines measurable goals and actionable strategies to advance racial equity, promote justice, and create lasting change. That means a lot of nothing. But yeah, we're going to do good. Now, he's been facing intense criticism, really, for his focus on race and equity, and including a policy proposal of stop the squeeze on New York City homeowners that outlines his plan to shift the tax burden from overtaxed homeowners in the outer boroughs to more expensive homes in the richer and wider neighborhoods. Yeah, he actually had a plan to do that. He's going to tax white people more to work on equity. Last February, he also got some criticism over his budget. He put in the budget, stated that the Office of Racial Equity would receive $5.6 million annually. The Commission of Racial Equity would be allocated $4.6 million. So between the two of them, that's $10.2 million, from what I'm assuming is pretty much doing the same thing. And it represents a $3 million increase, or a 42% jump, which means they had that last year, the equity offices. How do these things exist? It's racist. And it was $7.2 million in a city that is in financial turmoil right now. And they have people on the payroll, probably high-priced, that are called the Mayor's Office of Equity and Racial Justice Commissioner. They got a commissioner named that. What is his salary, by the way? And I bet he's not a white guy. And a New York City Chief Equity Officer. Probably not a white guy. Probably makes good money, though. Where that's going to balance everything out, is to have these jobs made up and stick them in there. I'm not a fan. I think it's illegal. I think it's wrong. And like what Trump has done to the military is got rid of all the crap and we're going to do what militaries do. We're going to get down to military work. We're out here to be warriors, and they named it back to the Department of War, and that's all we're going to focus on. We're going to stop the equity or the race and all that. And in the military, everybody the same rank makes about the same money. They share the same foxhole. They don't care because they're not going to focus on it. Biden had them start focusing on it, and of course, it probably caused problems. I know it caused morale problems. It caused a lot of problems. And a lot of generals were fired, probably because they were equity generals, and they just had their hit in equity and not in war. And I've seen a lot of criticism on that, about that. People pointed out that, he let these generals go just recently, just the other day, let a couple of generals and leading generals, Secretary of the Army, I think. And it was pointed out to me in a text that, Trump let these generals go. It's just outrageous and all that. So I looked it up, and Obama let many more go than that, because Obama was letting go the probably the ones that were focused on doing the right stuff and not focused on DEI and not focused on race. Probably the ones that were focused on getting emissions done. Well, now it's the opposite. I asked Dean Weingarten this morning. I texted him. So I just texted him a quick message. I said, so is Iran going to be destroyed today? Now, Dean Weingarten is a retired Army and a military buff, historian, scientist kind of guy. I'm always interested in what he thinks. And he's more skeptic than I am by far, which is a positive, I think. He's a good balance, because sometimes I'm naive. He said, I don't think so. Maybe some strikes, maybe take Karg Island. I don't know if they're ready for Karg Island. I don't. And I'll talk to him tomorrow about it, and he'll be in here. But I don't see strategically why Karg Island makes any difference right now. I don't think so. The Straits of Hormuz, it makes the difference. That's the difference. And there's 3 islands in Hormuz that they have armed, that Iran has armed these islands and are using these islands to control the shipping and all that stuff. I would take those islands. Forget Karg. Karg is way away. It's far away. Now, anything that leaves Karg has to go through the Strait of Hormuz. So if you're at the Strait of Hormuz, you're still in control. You can get to Karg whenever. You can go do that later. But none of that oil's leaving Karg Island if the Strait of Hormuz is controlled by the United States, if they don't want it to. Of course, the intent of the United States is to make it back into an international waters. It is international waters. It's recognized as international waters. If we had countries with guts that demanded open, it would be open. Well, we don't. Even NATO. NATO's threatening Trump because he's too strong. But Karg Island to me doesn't make as much sense. But again, I'm not military. And that's why I need Dean to come in and set me straight. Tell me why Karg Island makes sense. For me, you control Karg Island, you still don't have the straits. What have you done? What have you done? You can't take any oil off Karg Island. You can't transport any oil from Karg Island because you can't get through the straits. If you can't get through the straits, leave Karg Island alone. At least initially. I mean, eventually maybe you go in there and introduce yourself. But I think you get control of everything else, they'll give you Karg Island. Hegseth, I like him. Oh, and I know there's been so much bad press. People wanted him gone. They wanted him fired. Of course, these are the people that hate Trump to begin with. And I certainly like his energy, his youth. A lot of times these are older generals that get these jobs as a Secretary of War. Of course, there hasn't been a Secretary of War, I think, since World War II, has there? It's always been Secretary of Defense. And I'm sure if a Democrat wins the White House in 28, there'll be a Secretary of Defense within a day, because they don't like the Secretary of War. And we'll have the Secretary of LGBTQ or something. But anyway, he's he's looking at the education, which I think is brilliant. And he makes a statement that Hillsdale College, which most of you probably know Hillsdale College, their reputation. They don't take any government money. They give honest education. They're conservative. Um, they're supportive. They're patriots. But Hillsdale College doesn't need federal money. I guess they live within their budget and they do the right things. He's just added that to educate U.S. senior military officers. Now, in order to get rank in the military, you need to have an education. I mean, really, a rank, it's pretty set in policy. And certain ranks require certain education. Outside, I mean, even outside like the war colleges and stuff that they send you to. I mean, education's a big deal in the military. I guess that's why they're so excellent. I mean, they're smart guys and well-trained and well-educated. Well, they send them to a lot of civilian colleges. It's just part of the deal. The civilian colleges are part of the program in the military. And they use a lot of different institutions. And the military pays for it. They want their people educated. Well, it's changing. Pete Hegseth is aligning itself with the admissions push to cut ties with Ivy League schools over concerns about ideological influence. So March 30th, he sent a letter to Hillsdale College, Larry Arnn, and thanked the War Department, including the school amongst the institutions. And all. He says, thank you for including Hillsdale College amongst the institutions qualified to educate America's military leaders. I guess that's Larry sending it to him. He sent it to Hegseth. He wrote that supports, the goal of the military. He says, the lethality necessary to protect our national interest. He supports it. So there's no ideological difference that they need to be worried about. Now, and that comes weeks after Hegseth announced the Department of War would end partnership with several elite universities, including Harvard and Princeton. They're gone. Because of the woke ideology, it's weakened military education. It also, Department of War canceled 93 fellowship positions across 22 institutions. Harvard, MIT, Georgetown, Columbia, Princeton. We train warriors, not wokesters, according to Hegseth. Now, Hegseth's a graduate of Princeton University, so he knows of what he speaks. And he's earned a degree from Harvard University Kennedy School. So now Harvard and Princeton, his alumni, off the list. He understands them. The Pentagon is steering officers towards a new set of schools, including Hillsdale, Liberty University, George Madison University, Pepperdine University, and Texas-based Baylor University, along with large public universities such as the University of Florida, Auburn University, and the University of North Carolina. It also includes senior military colleges such as the Citadel, Virginia Tech, as well as the Pentagon-affiliated programs like the Ted Stevens Center or Arctic Security Studies in Alaska. It looks like the Trump administration is covering all bases. For today, for the future, cutting the people out that can't fit the roles, that aren't doing it. So it's a meritocracy. And I don't feel bad about Pam Bondi or Kristi Noem, and I like them both. I think they both made a few missteps. They're both still very loyal to Trump. Trump's still very loyal to them. But it's time to move on. And he's like that. He does that. And it's one of those jobs that when the president calls and asks, I've heard a lot of people explain this when they go to be a secretary, they go to do something, and they're used to making millions of dollars. And the president picks up the phone and says, I need you to be the Secretary of Treasury, Secretary of Energy, Secretary of anything. And it's a calling. And you do it for a big pay cut. You do it for the country. You do it for the right reasons. Not as a stepping stone up, but you step back and take care of your country. And that's what we've got. Believe me, Bondi and Noem are in good hands, and Trump will help them. This isn't an anger thing or of betrayal, this is time to move on. I like it a lot, and I like it that we're moving on from these universities that have gone so woke. And I don't think it's affected the university. Some of these universities, like Harvard, what do they have, like $50 billion or something in their trust fund or something? I mean, they've got enough money to be woke forever. They don't have to get contributors to pay money. They got it. I think George Braun's been talking a long time now about the Harvard diploma is turning employers off anymore. You know, in a lot of different sectors, and in his sector, it's the lawyers. But it just doesn't mean as much. It used to be that the Harvard, you'd be businesses would be lined up to get the graduates to saddle the graduates. Not anymore. Not according to George, anyway. The people that do it, I don't have that working knowledge, to tell you the truth. I don't work in that circle at George, and I just work in Yuma. Oh, the Saturday Night Live did a skit the other day that got the White House's attention, and it's during Saturday night's weekend update. It's got cast Michael Chi. I like Michael Chi. I mean, he's interesting. He's funny. Tells a lot of great jokes. I think this one was out of line. Yeah, if anything on Saturday Night Live could be out of line, this would be. He says, I think that's cool that president's going to the theater. I mean, what's the worst that could happen? He was referencing assassination of President Abraham Lincoln at the time. And of course, you know, Saturday Night Live in New York, it's got a massive audience of liberals. They cheered. And you've seen some of the alarming polls that they think, a big percentage think assassination's acceptable for Trump. The White House spokesperson, Davis Ingle, said Saturday Night Live hasn't been a good television show since President Trump hosted it. Yes, 11 years ago, Saturday Night Live in 2015, when he was still doing The Apprentice, he hosted it. I don't know if he'd go back and host it again, but who knows with Trump? He'll show up anywhere and do anything. I don't know if you saw some of his Easter interaction with kids. It was hilarious. He was signing autographs for some of the kids. And he even made the comment or something, you know, Biden wouldn't do this. He'd probably use the auto pin or something, you know, which is crazy. The kids have no idea what he's talking about. And he told the kid, he gave him an autograph. He says, you could put that on eBay and sell it. It's pretty awesome. He's hilariously, he's funny. Just a funny guy. I do enjoy trying to figure out what's coming next. What are we going to do next? Got to talk about Artemis too, since it's still up in the air. That's astronauts that just went by the moon. Yeah, they've already gone out to 252,000 miles, 756 miles away from Earth. I don't know at what point they measure that. I mean, they got it down to the foot. I don't know where the tape measure starts, but they got it down. You know, you would think there's some insignificant numbers in there somewhere, but I'll take it. NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman, he talked about it on Monday once they reached that 252,000. He said on the far side of the moon, 252,756 miles away, Reed, Victor, Christina, and Jeremy have now traveled farther from Earth than any human in history and now begin their journey home. Before they left, they said they hoped this mission would be forgotten. Now, when I first read that, I thought, why would you want to be forgotten? Well, then I remembered, like we don't forget Apollo 13 or something when it blew up. We don't forget the space shuttles that had disasters. Well, we don't forget those. I think it was Apollo 13 blew up. Maybe was that the one that had the there was one that blew up on the pad or had a fire and the astronauts died. And then there's another one that actually had a system that broke, air filtration or something. And they used duct tape. And I remember everybody waiting to see if they were going to survive it and make it all the way back home. They did, by the way. They did. They made it. So they want to be forgotten, which means I think they wanted to have it smooth and no big deal. But it would be remembered as the moment people started to believe that America can once again do the near impossible and change the world. Congratulations to this incredible crew and the entire NASA team, our international and commercial partners. But this mission isn't over until they're under safe parachutes splashing down into the Pacific, which will happen on Thursday out by San Diego, out in that area. So you could go over there. I want to talk about something that's going wrong with them, something to be remembered for, maybe. I don't know. They can't get the toilet working right. What is it with the toilet? Why? And they can't get it right on the new huge aircraft carrier that's like a technology, just amazing piece of technology. The Ford that's out there floating around and doing miraculous things. They can't flush the toilet. Why? Why is it they can't? We can figure out artificial intelligence and we can send people to the moon, but we can't get a toilet to work. Yeah, some of our most expensive hardware right now is sidelined because the toilet doesn't work on the Ford and it doesn't work on the spacecraft, although they're still flying, but they said there's bad smells coming out of there. Terrible. So they talk about it. They said until the bathroom is fixed, Mission Control has instructed the astronauts to break out more of the backup urine collection bags. That's not cool. And because the lunar loo, that's what they call the toilet, the lunar loo malfunctioned. Engineers suspect ice may be blocking the line that is preventing urine from completely flushing overboard. I guess that's why there's a smell in there, because it's not exiting. You would think they would think of that, right? Maybe. He said the toilet is still open for number 2 business, according to Debbie Croft. Yeah, they're forced to talk about it. They're doing this miraculous mission and taking high definition photographs of the moon and further distance from the Earth ever. And we're talking about toilets. The astronauts reported smell coming from the bathroom. It's buried in the floor of the capsule with a door and a curtain for privacy. I had no idea they had privacy. I didn't know it was that big. I mean, apparently it is. Space toilets and bathrooms are something everybody can really understand. It's always a challenge because there's no gravity. Yeah, you don't want that stuff to get loose. It doesn't go to the floor. Space shuttle toilets also is on the fritz. I didn't know that. Space shuttle had fritz problems. Why can't they fix that? The John Honeycutt, the chair of the mission management system, said, "It is human nature to be interested in the space commode. And even though it is in a good state right now, he'd like it to be working at 100%. Apparently it was malfunctioning initially, then they got it working. Now it's malfunctioning again, partially. But he says, we're okay. They trained to manage through the situation. So they train that too? I guess so. Let me see. Oh, Lisa Campbell, the Canadian Space Agency, said today he is making history for Canada, meaning Hansen, who is the first non-U.S. citizen to fly to the moon. Even though they didn't step on it, I mean, they flew past it, came back around, and and took pictures. And it's, again, testing out the system. That's a good thing. They want to see if the toilet works. It does not. We need a retrofit. The last astronaut to fly a lunar mission was Apollo 17 in 1972. So I have no idea if their toilet worked or not. I don't know. I don't remember reading about it. Trump did call the Artemis crew. He called them up and said, "Today you've made history and made all Americans really proud, incredibly proud." He praised all 4 astronauts: Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Koch, and Jeremy Hansen, as brave and modern day pioneers. America will be second to none in space and everything else that we're doing, and we will continue to lead the whole thing into the stars. A company that did really well with the moon shot this time, Nutella. That is, that's a spread that everybody puts on bread or something. It says it's chocolate hazelnut spread. Well, they took it with them. They took a jar of it with them, and it was, I guess it was in the kitchen area, wherever they put that stuff in there. So when they were speaking with the on air, or talking on video to the crew, the tub of Nutella, so it must have been a tub, not just a jar, tub of Nutella, casually floated out of the spacecraft's kitchen like it had a call time and a lighting crew. In zero gravity, the jar drifted, turned towards, and practically posed, label forward, perfectly flamed, delivering a product shot so pristine it looked storyboarded. How do you know it wasn't? It might have been that, and it's really cool that it did that. And if you go on American Idol, companies like Dunkin' paid them for a while to put their product on the desk, or Coke products or something. And you see that all the time in movies where they'll promote a product. And here, this guy got a freebie, a freebie. So the Nutella team saw it right away, and their marketing team went right to work. They shared the video of the advertising accident, and then they wrote and they put it out there on social media and everything. They says, "Honored to have traveled farther than any spread in history, taking spreading smiles to new heights." It included spacecraft, a spaceship, and heart emojis in the post, of course, all that. And it was viewed 200,000 times as of Monday evening. I bet it's more than that now. So Nutella got a big thing. I'd be curious in 6 months where their sales are. I'll bet it has a impact. I bet it does. Somebody. So now there'll be companies asking for it. Like, look, we'll buy you a new toilet if you advertise our product. That's what I would do. I'd go forward and offer that. I'd buy you a new toilet. We'll get one that works if you put our product in the next show. That's what they need to do. I'm gonna take a quick break. I can't believe it's 8:30 already. I don't know where the time goes. We'll be right back.
I wanna talk to you, my love, don't hide. Let's chase the darkness, let the tears subside. We'll find a way to heal in the wounds we have sown. In this tropical house, we will make a home. I wanna talk to you, my love, don't hide. Let's chase the darkness, let the tears subside. We'll find a way to heal in the wounds we have sown. In this tropical house, we will make a home. Hello, hello, कुछ तो तुम अब बोलो दिल से मेरे, अब नाता तुम जोड़ो. Hello, hello, कुछ तो तुम अब बोलो दिल के सारे दरवाजे तुम खोलो. Hello. Oh, hello. In this tropical house, our love will never fade. To the ups and downs.
Back with you from Mortgage One Studios. It is 8:30. Oh, it's time goes fast. A video I watched in Chicago. It's causing problems with the mayor, Brandon Johnson, and it's about teens trends, and he's been warning people it can turn deadly, and I guess they're using social media to, rampage or something. He said in Hyde Park, residents on March 30th did a takeover, lasted for hours into the night. So a takeover, I don't. A takeover sometimes they mean they're blocking streets, jumping on cars, causing damage. He said the car was among this Jason Hale, one resident who complained about it, said the car was among 30 affected by the crowds. Jason says about his car, he says it's bad. The hood's messed up, terrible, thousands worth of damage, dents everywhere, footprints everywhere. So these teens, and you can get it on online and take a look at it. They just meet and they rampage and start jumping on cars from car to car. I mean, from one car to the next as they're parked next to each other, and they're denting and destroying these cars. And they're moving on top of parked vehicles as crowds formed around them. And I guess the local police don't know what to do about it. Well, you start putting them in jail and then making them pay restitution and fix the cars is what you do. 16-year-old girl was also charged with unlawful possession of a weapon and disorderly conduct. They said 3 curfew violations were issued. Big deal. 3 curfew violations. What about Jason Hale's car? City officials are saying that these gatherings are through social media, which police have social media. They can get on it and take a look. Apparently, this trend is growing across Chicago. And it's moving across the city. So the mayor is coming out now and putting out statements, says, we're currently tracking 5. That's right, 5 teen trends across the city this weekend. I'm calling all parents. Check in with your children. See where they plan to be this weekend. Please do not allow your child to attend any of these trends this weekend. I call them teen trends. Instead of violent rampaging. I say violent. No one's getting shot. They're just tearing up property and blocking traffic and making people feel unsafe. The mayor goes on to say they're unsafe. They can turn deadly. Our police officers will be out enforcing the city's 10 p.m. curfew. If they were pro-police and pro-enforcing law, like take a book or a page out of the book of Rudy Giuliani when he went into New York. And I visited New York before Rudy Giuliani was there. I lived in that area. I lived in Delaware, and we were about the same distance for me to get to New York as it would be for Yuma's to drive to Phoenix. I could get to New York City in that amount of like that. So we drive to New York occasionally and do things, and we take friends there, whatever. Daytime, there's places we wouldn't go. And I remember taking people out on 42nd Street and horseback cops roaming around trying to keep it under control a little bit. People selling. I mean, right by the horse, the cop on horseback. People would be selling, like open up their jacket and have a bunch of watches, or say, hey, you want to buy a watch or pot or any kind of drug, just in the open. And these guys, I took them. They were friends. Well, my friend that went to the Air Force Academy, they were So it was like 1980, 1981. They came in and wanted to go see New York. A lot of them never been off the farm. You know, they were at the Air Force Academy, but never been off farm, and came to New York City. They all flew in during a break that they got to go to the football game in Annapolis. So Don brought them to Delaware. We all went to New York City. We saw plays and stuff, but it wasn't the same as it is now. It was a lot rougher, a lot tougher. And Rudy Giuliani cleaned it up. I mean, it was great. I don't know what it is now. I haven't been back in maybe 10 years. But and I used to go every year and go to in November just to see Christmas in New York, because it's Macy's and stuff down in Times Square as we're getting ready for Christmas. I wouldn't do it now. I have no interest. I mean, the way Mondani's running it and all that, I don't feel safe. I wouldn't want to do it. I don't know it. I know where the buildings are. I don't know what the attitude is. I don't think it'd be good. But getting back to Chicago currently, this Jason Hill, who had his car tore up, he says, your kids should not be out here. I had parents who guided me, and these parents, they just let them run rampant. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, Jason had parents that guided him, but you need to find a better place to park your car, Jason. It's dangerous out there to park a car. You're going to have kids jumping on it. These kids need to be in this. They need to be arrested. They need to pay restitutions. They need to work it off. They need to pick up trash on a highway. I don't care. They need to do something so that society, they understand you can't just do this in society without some problems. There's going to be some problems. Unfortunately, I don't think Chicago's ready for that. Yeah, we got the mayor just warning the kids, parents, that's it. That's not what you can control, Mayor. You can control the police. You can control that stuff. But just making curfews and stuff versus enforcing the law. You wouldn't have to have a curfew for you enforce the law. You don't need a curfew. Except you can't control it because you don't, I don't think you have an interest in controlling it, probably. Rudy Giuliani knew, and he called it the broken glass thing or something. Like, if there's a glass broken, you take care of it. The details. Take care of the details. The big things take care of themselves. So he did all the little details. A little bit of shoplifting mattered. Enforcing all the laws mattered. And pretty soon, it was a happy, safe place. It was wonderful. I don't know how we didn't learn that experiment worked. Rudy Giuliani was right. And then we get into, well, the cops are too tough. The cops are too tough. They talked to me and I didn't need to be talked to. How dare they ask me a question? Well, that's what kept it safe. Was the cops were engaged. They were talking to people. Well, they can let it go if they want. Vance is in charge of fraud. Did you know that? He's the fraud czar. He's the Trump administration's new task force to eliminate fraud. And he's the chair, Vice President J.D. Vance. I bet he is a better fraud czar than Harris was ever in a border czar. Yeah, border. She was border czar. On March 16th, President Donald Trump signed an executive order establishing the task force, announcing that it would be advised of the president in coordinated efforts to end fraud, waste, and abuse in government benefit programs. It's working with the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services to identify and suspend hospice and home health providers flagged as high risk. CMS has suspended 70 providers, which they should. And just like they suspended the payment that went into the Leering centers in Minneapolis. Look, the states are responsible for administering these programs. They're responsible. And some of these states have just gone out of their way to enable fraud, like Minnesota. It's just a cesspool of fraud. And they all just live with it. Well, Trump cut them off until you can show me the books. Well, I don't think they have the books, or their books are not proud of the books. I don't know. So they're fighting now over, well, you're not paying us. Well, good. The state can still pay. They just don't get reimbursed. It's all up to them. Straighten it out or do without. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and CMS Administrator Dr. Hamed Oz joined Vance to reveal that the administration has deferred $259.5 million in quarterly Medicaid funding in Minnesota due to fraud concerns. And I don't think Tampon Tim gets it yet. He still goes on all these talk shows raving about how children are suffering because of Donald Trump. No, they're suffering because of your mismanagement, your inability to get things done, the fraud that you've allowed. You know, it's been going on so long, and looking back at it, you knew it was going on and you did nothing. You are not a good steward of the money. The feds shouldn't be sending it to you, period. Get your act together. I don't think he's going to take responsibility, Tampon Tim. I don't think so. CMS implemented a 6-month moratorium on new Medicaid enrollment for certain durable medical suppliers, because they're finding out that a lot of these suppliers they've been paying billions of dollars to suppliers for equipment that was never ordered, never done, using other people's numbers and stuff. I've read that fraud scheme on other articles where they just get a hold of Medicaid numbers for people. They draw up some paperwork that just you need some kind of apparatus or something, some kind of medical equipment. Medicare pays the bill. And the person whose name is referenced in his Medicare, he never had anything to do with it. It's all a big scam. Well, the task force plans to utilize the CMS existing template, which involves an AI-driven internal fraud detection system that either blocks claims or flags them for review. This system can be scaled across government to root out waste, fraud, and abuse nationwide and effectively. Now, there's going to be people complaining about it. There's going to be, and the people could be like Tampon Tim. Oh my God, you're cutting off funds. You could have hurt the kids. You're going to hurt the kids. No, he's going to expose the fraud in Minnesota. And you need to get your people up to speed. You need to get the fraud worked out and put some people in jail. And that whole state is derelict. It's asleep at the wheel. And it took a 23-year-old blogger to expose it. Isn't that amazing? Was that Nick Shirley? Nick Shirley. Well, everybody should be sitting around like, why didn't I do that? He had guts. He had guts. He brought it all to light. And now he's in California. And it's so hilarious. I mean, he's doing great work. But the hilarious part is he went to a daycare center and they didn't want to answer the door. And they said, I know who you are. You're Nick Shirley. I mean, he's famous amongst the fraudsters. It's kind of like when you have this fear, like, oh, there's somebody at the door and you're running a business and somebody comes in and says, we're from 60 Minutes. It's panic. That's the way 60 Minutes used to be. They're not like that anymore. But they used to point out stuff. That was wrong. They used to go after fraudsters and stuff. Now it takes Nick Shirley with an iPhone to go after. You don't need these guys getting millions of dollars in salaries because they're not doing anything but covering an ideology and going after the president for stuff that's not wrong. Just trying to destroy his image. Nick Shirley's actually doing work, doing journalism, going after real stuff. And I haven't seen a lot of people joining him. I haven't seen these professional journalists joining him. The only ones that I saw did in Minnesota that joined him went out there to prove that Nick Shirley was a fraud, went out to prove that these daycares were legit, and then they got surprised. They didn't get any different results than Nick Shirley, so they stopped researching. They stopped it. You would think that would clue them into what's available for real news, but it didn't. There's still only Nick Shirley out there, I think. If there's somebody else, I don't know who they are. Well, the White House, the task force sheet that said that it could be total billions in Minnesota. It was taking action to end the epidemic. There's a strong reason to believe similar vulnerabilities exist in California, Illinois, New York, Maine, and Colorado, where significant safeguards and weak oversight increase the risk of large-scale fraud. Now, why do you believe that there's weak oversight? And why do you believe that there's insufficient safeguards? Because they don't care. It's not their money. It doesn't affect them. It's coming from the feds. They don't care. The more money, the merrier. More money in circulation in Minnesota, take it, take it, take it. That's what I believe. I believe they don't care. That as much money as they can pass out, that's what we do, is we pass out money. Come in, we'll pass it out. We won't even check. We don't care. So they got ripped off of billions of dollars. But they don't care about that either, because they weren't paying the bills. The rest of the taxpayers are paying the bills. They don't pay it personally. The taxpayers are. And it's money that circulates, some of it in Somalia, some of it back in Minnesota. Because a lot of these Somali daycares that didn't have any kids drove luxury cars. Some of them got repoed too. Yeah. Earlier this month, Shirley revealed about $170 million in alleged daycare and hospice fraud in California. That's just Shirley, just going out on his own. Just one guy runs down, takes a trip to California, rides around and double checks public information stuff, public information on who's getting money, and knocks on doors. That's all it takes. So what does that tell you about the state that's supposed to be double checking? They're supposed to do inspections. That's part of the deal. You get the grants, you get the money. You got to do the work. Knock on the door. Just make sure it's a person in there, that they're following the rules. They're open at 6 o'clock. They got a playground. It's clean. They got restroom facilities, all that stuff. They got toys. Yeah, great. Checked off. Check. Good. We'll see you in 6 months. That was the program. And we know that one of those daycares was 7 years. 7 years. The neighbor said, yeah, it's been there for 7 years. I've never seen anybody go in. I've never seen a kid. 7 years. Nobody noticed. Nobody cared. That's all that is. Nobody cared. Let me see. I want to talk about the governor of Virginia, Abigail Spanberger. I don't like her. I don't like her. I mean, she's a Democrat, but she ran. She ran as a Democrat, sure, but she ran as a centrist. She ran as a centrist. Oh, but my goodness, she is nothing. I mean, she is a radical left. But you got to do what it takes to get promoted, or to get the job, to get the votes. You got to take do what it takes. Once you're in office, heck, man, anything goes. Well, her popularity's plummeted, and it's only been 3 months in office. She is at 46% disapproval. 46% of the Virginians disapprove, which means it's bipartisan. 47% approve. But that's she's worse than compared to other governors, whether Republican or Democrat, doesn't matter, since 1994. And she's just getting started. She's got the highest disapproval rate at this point in her term. Governor Glenn Youngkin had a 54-39 job approval. Now, keep in mind, he's a Republican. In a heavy Democrat state, and he's a Republican, he got elected. And he beat Terry McAuliffe, which was a shocker, but McAuliffe shot himself in the foot over education. McAuliffe was he was a governor. You get termed out in one term, and then he came back to run again, very popular, and he was stupid enough to go to some meeting that involved education, where parents were complaining about some things going on in the schools, and McCullough flat told him that the teachers are the professionals, they know better than you. Not in those words, but that was the message. And he lost. I guess there are some parents that care in Virginia. Well, Youngkin got in, did a great job, and he had a 54-39 approval in a very Democrat state. As a Republican, that's pretty good. And let me see. Democrat Mark Warner, now a senator, he had a 78-20 rating. Senator Tim Kaine had a 62-31 rating when he, at the same point, he was governor. Governor Jim Gilmore, 63-30. So Terry McAuliffe had a 52-30. And Terry McAuliffe was, became a household name when he worked for Clinton. He was the money man for Clinton, sharp guy. I think his wife is running for the House or something. Well, George Mason University Policy and Government Dean Mark Roselle, co-sponsor of the poll that did it, and talks about Spanberger in his early term after campaign as a centrist image. That's what she campaigned as, a centrist image. And 7% of Virginians, however, by contrast, cite her so far as being too conservative. 7%. I don't know how they do that. But she shifted on gerrymandering as recently in 2019. She made a comment that gerrymandering is detrimental to our democracy and it weakens the individual voices that form our electors. Opposing gerrymandering should be a bipartisan priority. That was 6 years ago. Now, and she surprisingly agreed to gerrymander Virginia, and it was a surprise to everybody. Because she wasn't for it, but now all of a sudden she's turned very left. She also changed her views on guns. She was received criticism. She was a moderate Congress, and she was actually a CIA agent and a postal inspector. She carried a firearm. She 25 rally. She said, "I'm a mother of 3 girls in Virginia public schools. I'm also a former federal agent who carried a gun every single day for my job. So I come at this issue as someone who cares deeply about the safety of our kids and as someone who understands the responsibilities of owning and carrying a firearm." But not now. She's changed. There's a gun control bill sponsored by State Dale Dan Helmer of Fairfax and former First Lady. Yeah, Dorothy McAuliffe. She is in a state. But apparently she's in favor of it now. And she wants to gerrymander everything and do all that. But yeah, she's despicable. Because she's changed her viewpoint so much and everything too. I mean, I just I don't appreciate it. Elon Musk. I haven't talked about him all day. Terafab is coming, and you're not ready. That's the article. Elon he's doing something at the Shalom Power Plant in Austin, Texas. He presented Terafab. It's the most ambitious semiconductor manufacturing project in history, or a very expensive project that may not come to be. I don't know. But let me see, he says, Terafab was made at a decommissioned power plant, reflecting Elon Musk's understanding of stagecraft. The ruined infrastructure of one of the era marks a convenient altar for the next. So he says Terrafab is a plan to build vertically integrated chip manufacturing capacity in Austin, combining under one roof design, fabrication, and packaging, which I understand is not done now. And I know I've done some research on the plants in Phoenix, and fabrication's done, but then it gets shipped to Taiwan to do other parts of the packaging or something that they don't have the capability, and the design's done somewhere else. He wants to combine it all and put it all in there, but it sounds like Elon. He does that vertical stuff with the cars, with the Teslas and everything. He builds the component parts, he puts it all together under one roof. But he wants the testing of advanced semiconductors, Tesla, SpaceX, and AI. In fact, they announced the investment figure of $20 billion. For his long run target is 1 terawatt of compute capacity per year, which I think is more than what's developed in the world right now. It's a mind-boggling amount. I know he wants to do a lot. Measuring compute in watts means that the limiting factors in energy throughput, which I don't understand what that means, is described the data centers as fast-growing fraction of global electricity demand. By 2030, in its base case, that demand could roughly double. The technology core of Terrafab is the most defensible part. The pitch is about iteration speed. If you can build a chip, fabricate it, package it, test it, and revise the mask all inside one building without shipping components between specialized facilities in different countries, you can improve faster than anyone who does not. In conventional semiconductor manufacture, these functions are geographically and organizationally scattered. A mask set travels, a wafer ships, a packaged part crosses the ocean. Each journey is a delay, and delay is the enemy of feedback loop. Terrafab is a wager that learning velocity beats static mode leadership. Wow. He's planning on building this now, of course, in Austin, Texas, everything under one roof. And he says it's a great vertical integration project of industrial capitalism, such as Ford's River Rouge complex, which turns raw materials into finished automobiles inside a single vast geography, its own power plant humming at the center. The global semiconductor supply chain is highly concentrated. Roughly 92% of the world's most advanced chip manufacturing capacity sits in Taiwan. To build end-to-end domestic capability is simultaneously a resilience project and a power project, a bid to internalize a strategic resource inside one corporate constellation rather than depend on the broader market of specialized suppliers. Terrafab is a cultural event as much as a technological advancement, and its cultural work is to naturalize a particular diagnosis that intelligence is infrastructure, infrastructure is energy, and energy is horizon of meaning for civilization progress. Whether or not the fab gets built on the schedule, whether or not the orbital satellites ever achieve megawatt scale compute, the frame has been installed. The factory is where the future lives, and the future needs power. That's Elon Musk. I like it. He wants to, and he wants to put it in space. He says terrestrial compute is constrained by land, power, cooling, and local political opposition to enormous data centers. Space has sunlight and no neighbors to complain about the noise. Space also has no air and vacuum. He cannot leave a system by convection, only by radiation, which requires very large radiator surfaces at high power levels. This International Space Station thermal control system requires radiators the size of tennis courts to reject the heat generated by its system. Radiation poses its own complications. The energetic particles in the space environment induce bit flips and long-term degradation in electronics not specifically hardened against them. The orbital vision is not impossible. It's simply a different problem than the earthbound one. even when presented in the same breath, as though the same momentum carries the project from Austin to low Earth orbit without friction. The future needs power. So he wants to put it in space. I didn't know that about dispersing the heat. I would think that it's so cold in space that would freeze your toilet. Well, if it freezes your toilet, wouldn't it freeze the semiconductors? Apparently not. I would think you just need a fan, just bring in a little outside air. But man, again, he's the engineer. They'll figure it out. Anyway, I'm out of time. I'm going to be back tomorrow, though. Thanks so much for listening. This is Mortgage One Studio with Russ Clark. I'll see you tomorrow.